Chapter 347. He went straight in. There were no more obstructions. Everything in the dark owl, ancient ruins entered his mind. Almost instantly, Lin Feng sensed that familiar aura. His body was like a shooting star. Lin Feng went straight into the depths of the long passage. The rebirth flame in his hand exploded. Everything in his way collapsed and exploded into pieces. At this moment, there was only one goal left in Lin Feng's heart. Zhupidi. Lin Feng's eyes were deep and bright, revealing his killing intent. He thought of how, because of his benevolence that day, he let the tiger return to the mountain and caused endless trouble. Not only human warriors, even his own family was almost killed. The hatred in Lin Feng's heart couldn't help but rise. Deep self-reproach and hatred. He had to make up for this mistake. Soon, Lin Feng reached the deepest part. It was a magnificent place, full of grace and luxury. However, it only had the shape. This is the underground palace of the Assassin Alliance. Lin Feng's eyes were bright as he looked around. At this moment, it was empty. The quiet environment was completely incompatible with the gorgeous decorations. In the deepest part of the underground palace, Lin Feng sensed the only aura. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he stepped in, his eyes gleaming with sharpness. Step, step, step. His footsteps were very heavy. Lin Feng's aura firmly locked on his Zhupidi. On the huge golden dragon throne that symbolized his status, Lin Feng saw the face that he hated to the bones. A strong smell of alcohol. It was a deep and blurred space. Lin Feng frowned slightly. Looking at Zhupidi, who was still drinking not far away, he couldn't help but feel a deep sadness in his heart. Such a person was actually the son of the commander, such an ambitious person. It was indeed a tiger father and a dog son. It made people sigh. He didn't look like a warrior at all. He didn't even look like a human. A coward. Zhupidi. Lin Feng's voice sounded indifferently. It was like the sound of a bell, reverberating in the empty palace. Zhupidi, who was drinking to his heart's content, suddenly frowned, as if trying to recall where he had heard this voice. He put down the wine cup and raised his head, his blurred eyes blurred. Zhupidi narrowed his eyes, finally overlapping the figures in front of him into a flat surface. Slowly, they converged into the shape of a person. Pong! His head exploded. Looking at that face, Zhupidi's body violently twitched, incomparable panic on his face. Plop! Zhupidi staggered and lost his balance. He was so frightened that he actually fell down from the dragon throne. In an instant, he sobered up. That face was far too familiar. He had once hated Lin Feng to the bone, and wished that he could tear Lin Feng into pieces. But now all that was left was a deep fear. The strength that Lin Feng had displayed in the Battle of the Beast Horde had made Zhupidi feel fear from the bottom of his heart. Not to mention fighting, he didn't even have the courage to look. Lin Feng's strength had far exceeded his limit. Lin Feng's strength was too terrifying. Yu, pointing his finger at Lin Feng, Zhupidi used his hands to crawl backward. But behind him was the dragon throne, completely blocking his way. His head roared. Zhupidi's face was pale. He never thought that Lin Feng would actually appear here. Surprised? Lin Feng said in surprise. Looking at Zhupidi, who was like an ant in front of him, his eyes revealed a faint killing intent. Perhaps Zhupidi could strut around in Sky City and dominate the Sky Martial Continent, but in front of him, he was not worth mentioning at all. A waste. You don't come over. Zhupidi was a little slurred, but he was completely sober. In the face of life and death, facing the greatest danger, Zhupidi's body trembled, extremely panicked. Of course, he knew why Lin Feng came. Since you did it, you should have thought of the consequences. Lin Feng's gaze was deep. He slowly stepped forward and said in a deep voice, in the most dangerous time of mankind, not only did you not help, you even took the opportunity to benefit and did not hesitate to cause a civil war. He's so selfish and unscrupulous. And the worst thing is, you dare to have ideas about my family? Lin Feng sneered. If I don't kill you, how can I face the people of Sky Martial Continent? How can I face my family? In Lin Feng's eyes, a dense killing intent was revealed. In his heart, he was extremely angry. Bang! The raging flames burned. The rich rebirth flames emitted a terrifying aura. Looking at the flames, Jupity's last line of defense completely collapsed. Thinking of the terror of the beast horde's attack, his heart was cold to the extreme. His eyes were lifeless, but in an instant, bang! Jupity's body leaned forward, kneeling on the ground. I beg you, Lin Feng, let me live. For my father's sake, spare me. I swear, I really swear. Jupity raised his hand in panic. I will definitely turn over a new leaf. I will definitely turn over a new leaf. His appearance was extremely sincere, as if he was really repenting. Jupity's eyes revealed a desire, and he kept swearing. However, it's too late. Lin Feng was not moved. With a short sentence, he sentenced Jupity to death. He cut off all his thoughts. People will not always have a second chance. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with killing intent. In an instant, the rebirth flames in his hand burst, quickly enveloping Jupity, crazily releasing a terrifying energy. The bright red flames wrapped around the demon-like body, emitting a heart-palpitating scream, but in the blink of an eye, it turned into nothingness. Jupity dead, clean and neat, without the slightest bit of sloppiness. I'm sorry, Commander. Lin Feng closed his eyes and softly murmured, I have no other choice. Lin Feng opened his eyes. There was not the slightest bit of regret. Some things, even if he was unwilling to do it, he had to do it. For the Sky Martial Continent, for his family, Jupity, this malignant tumor, must be eliminated. Mercy is a sin. He could not make the same mistake twice. Massacre begin. All the martial artists in the Dark Owl ancient ruins. Kill them all. Killing one person every 10 steps. Lin Feng's hand was on fire. The rebirth flames were boiling in the entire ancient ruins. Not a single cultivator was able to block it or escape from it. Facing the arrival of such a fiend, the Assassin Alliance's martial artists were completely caught off guard. It was as if a ferocious tiger had suddenly appeared in a flock of sheep. A bloody massacre frantically unfolded. Die! Lin Feng waved both of his hands, ruthless and emotionless. The flames that filled the sky burned the entire hall. In the large hall, all the martial artists were originally happily drinking wine, living a comfortable life. But in an instant, it became hell on earth. Wails of anguish extinguished the moment they started. Die! Lin Feng did not even turn his head as he turned and left. Everyone had to take responsibility for the path they had taken, for the wrong things they had done. Being in the Assassin Alliance, which of these martial artists' hands were not stained with blood? How many innocent martial artists had died in their hands? If not for my good luck that day, maybe now the one dying would be me. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with determination. The winner takes all. There was no need to sympathize with him. Survival of the fittest. Since they were on opposite sides, there was only one way to go. Kill. The strong survive. The weak die. Thinking about how he had narrowly escaped death time and time again, his hatred towards the Assassin Alliance could not help but explode. At that time, he was young, weak, did not have the capital, did not have the strength to retaliate. But now, it was no longer the same as before. What he had lost, he would take it all back. Blame yourselves for standing on the wrong side. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In an instant, the raging fire once again enveloped the huge training field, turning countless martial artists into ashes. Perhaps he did not recognize most of them, but that was not important. When cutting grass, he had to remove the roots. Since he had done it, he had to do it thoroughly, not leaving any leeway. In order to establish a new order, the Assassin Alliance must be destroyed. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with determination. He did not show any mercy. The flames that filled the sky burned in the Dark Owl ancient ruins, setting off a bloody storm. Emperor Wu, titled martial gods, all of them died tragically. Very quickly. In the entire Dark Owl primordial ruins, all the existences with the aura of warriors were killed. Lin Feng closed his eyes and spread out his mind's eye. There were no more martial artists. The only ones left were some mentally retarded women. These women, he had found them by chance. They were called seeds. Seeds to continue the bloodline. When he heard the shocking news, Lin Feng's heart twisted. He could already see that many of the women's bellies were swollen. Many of them had bruises all over their bodies, their faces pale and weak. These bastards, even killing them 100 times, is not enough. Lin Feng clenched his teeth. According to what he knew, other than the extremely beautiful ones who became the exclusive property, the rest of the women were all ravaged. While the humans of the Sky Martial continent were in dire straits, the Assassin Alliance's scum were hiding underground, doing things that were worse than beasts, infuriating to both humans and gods. Damn it! Lin Feng clenched his fists, his eyes blood red. The last bit of pity in his heart immediately disappeared, and in its place was a deep anger. He hated himself for letting them die so easily. Let's go. I will bring you out. Lin Feng pursed his lips, his eyes revealing a gentle light. The listless eyes of the women immediately lit up with joy, and their pale faces became a little rosy. In this dark place where they could not see the light of day, living an inhuman life, they never thought that one day they would be saved, escape with their lives, and return to the Sky Martial continent. But now all of this was here. Looking at the Azura, like youth in front of them, the women did not have the slightest bit of fear, only deep gratitude. Thank you, hero. Thank you, thank you. The women cried bitterly, constantly bowing and thanking Lin Feng, their great benefactor. It's all right. Come with me, Lin Feng said with a smile. Then he led the girls outside. As the women left one by one, Lin Feng felt his heart relax a little, until, you also want to leave? Lin Feng stretched out his right hand, lightly stopping a woman in plain clothes. Next chapter, between 0:00 and 1 o'clock. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 348. The surrounding girls all widened their eyes. This linen-clothed girl was no different from the other girls. Her haggard face revealed a trace of fear in her eyes. However, Lin Feng blocked her path. Do you think you could get away with it, Qi Yin? Lin Feng's eyes flickered. His aura enveloped the linen-clothed girl, bringing with it a deep pressure. A faint flame flickered on his right hand. All he needed was a thought. With just a thought, he could immediately kill her. What did you say? The linen-clothed girl's face turned pale. Your disguise is not bad. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. You should have a spirit treasure similar to the form-changing pearl, right? There were many spirit treasures that could conceal one's aura. Back then, when Zhu Pudi collaborated with the assassins to assassinate him, he used the form-changing pearl. In fact, he had also used the 3-star spirit treasure, the fog concealment talisman. Lin Feng understood this very well. Unless it was a spirit treasure that defied the heavens, if there was a huge difference in strength between the two parties, he would definitely be able to sense it at close range. Of course, this referred to close range. Using the mind's eye from a distance was useless. I have to say that you are very cunning. Lin Feng sighed. If one of his targets was not the Qi Yin, and if he did not know from the green flood dragon that the Qi Yin was definitely in the Dark Owl primordial ruins, perhaps he would really be able to fish in troubled waters. After all, they were a group of weak and pitiful girls. He really would not investigate them. If it was any other martial artist, they would definitely pass. However, he was the Qi Yin. He could not find a trace of the Qi Yin even after searching the entire Dark Owl primordial ruins. Obviously, there was a trap. You are very powerful. Lin Feng nodded meaningfully. Thinking of the constant battles between them, Lin Feng's eyes brightened. Thank you for your training and nurturing. At the same time, farewell. Lin Feng spoke indifferently and spat out flames from his right hand. In an instant, boom, the flames exploded. A familiar scream was heard. Lin Feng's eyes looked through the flames and saw the man struggling with all his might. Looking at that distorted face, as the flames burned, it instantly turned into ashes and disappeared into the air. Lin Feng's heart calmed down. red pheasant eye. Similarly, it was clean and tidy. There was no chance for any resistance. In fact, even if he resisted, it would be useless. No matter how strong the conspiracy, no matter how deep the shrewdness, so what? In the face of absolute power, everything else was nothing. In the sky martial continent, in the Doling world, Lin Feng deeply understood one of the simplest, yet most incisive principles. The strong were respected. He ignored the gazes of the girls, even if this caused the women to panic and fear. So what? As long as he understood, it was enough. This place, Lin Feng hesitated slightly. He felt that this dark owl ancient ruin was filled with many mysteries and unknowns. However, the primordial ruins was still in existence in the Doling world. Although he was unparalleled in the sky martial continent, he was still an insignificant existence in the Doling world. We can't be careless. For example, the Four Great Despairs was still a mystery. In terms of research on the primordial ruins, whether it is Xiao, Lan, or even you, they're all stronger than me. These, I will leave it to the brothers and sisters of Shou. Lin Feng smiled and heaved a sigh of relief. What should be done, he had done almost all of it. Zhu Pudi and Red Pheasant were dead, the assassins were all killed, and the Dark Owl ancient ruin was cleared. From now on, the Assassin Alliance, everything fell apart. From now on, there will be no more Assassin Alliance. Ayun, the road to establishing a new order has been paved. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. He still owed his brother a favor. The Star Vault pupil was too precious. Father, only Ayun and I have the bloodline. In terms of aptitude, Ayun is better than me, and his bloodline is better. He is more suitable to pass down the bloodline than me. And I... Lin Feng pursed his lips, his eyes revealing a faint light. As the big brother, he had to take responsibility. He had to stand up. The matters in the sky martial continent had almost come to an end, but he was still standing at the starting point. The road in front of him was too long, too many. Entering the Doling world is full of danger. Lin Feng was very clear. His father definitely had a very strong enemy, and it was the kind that would not rest until he was dead. With his father's strength, he was seriously injured and barely kept his life. With his current strength, it was like hitting a stone with an egg. But there was no way out. This matter, he had to do it. 10,000 years. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Father, I will definitely bring you back to life. Definitely. Lin Feng nodded his head vigorously. His expression was filled with determination. Perhaps, from the moment he embarked on the path of a martial artist, he would never be able to turn back. But I like it very much. Lin Feng nodded his head lightly, feeling the improvement of his strength, feeling the stimulation of life, filled with challenges. This kind of life was the most suitable path for him. The Dark Owl ancient ruin. Under the instructions of the Green Flood Dragon, Lin Feng sent the girls back to the sky martial continent. Very quickly, in the huge golden palace, only Lin Feng and the Green Flood Dragon were left. The atmosphere was very strange. A few drops of cold sweat seeped out of the Green Flood Dragon's forehead. He forced a smile, but his heart was beating like a drum. Lin Feng's gaze made him afraid. It was the feeling of a hunter looking at his prey, filled with danger. Although Lin Feng had promised him in front of everyone, but now, there was no one else. Lin Feng could totally kill him and use an excuse to cover it up. His reputation would not be damaged at all. Oh no, oh no. The more the Green Flood Dragon thought about it, the more afraid he became. He forced a smile. Lin Feng, let's go, too. Looking at the Green Flood Dragon, Lin Feng's mouth curved indifferently and suddenly said, "Are you afraid?" The Green Flood Dragon's nervousness and fear were all in his heart. He could completely see his every move and the changes in his heart. Indeed, with his current strength, killing him was like pinching an ant to death. Too easy. What? The Green Flood Dragon was still smiling, but his body was trembling. The bad premonition in his heart was getting stronger and stronger. The smile of the young man in front of him was as terrifying as a demon. Pa! Lin Feng's right hand pressed against the green flood dragon's lower abdomen. In an instant, the green flood dragon's face turned pale, and he trembled. Lin Feng, what are you doing? The green flood dragon did not dare to resist, nor did he dare to move. He was afraid that he would end up like Qi Yan. In an instant, vanished into thin air. You're very smart, Lin Feng said indifferently. You know how to judge the situation, and you did make a contribution this time. But a mistake is a mistake. Lin Feng's eyes were cold, making the green flood dragon feel as if he had fallen into an ice house, his back cold. You said you wouldn't kill me, Lin Feng. The green flood dragon's face was pale, and he was scared out of his wits. That's right. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. Seeing that you have made a contribution, I will let you live. With that, Lin Feng's tone suddenly changed, and his eyes flickered. But you can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment. Leaving a person like you in the Sky Martial continent will only be a disaster. Boom! There was a shocking explosion. A ball of flame penetrated the green flood dragon's lower abdomen, went straight into the heart of origin, and instantly burst. The control was extremely powerful. Puff! The green flood dragon vomited blood and collapsed to the ground like a dead fish. His eyes were white, and his expression was extremely miserable. His heart of origin was completely shattered. No, it disappeared. Looking at the green flood dragon, Lin Feng's eyes did not have the slightest pity and said indifferently, In the future, take care of yourself. Stepping into the teleportation array, Lin Feng flashed a white light. Soon it disappeared. The Sky City was in jubilation. Zhu was dead. Qi Yan was also dead. Everyone was happy. Every martial practitioner hated Zhu to the bone, and they had countless grudges against Qi Yan and the Assassin's Alliance. Now, as Lin Feng swept through the area like breaking a twig, no longer existed. From now on, there was no more Assassin Alliance. That hateful face was completely erased from their memories. That would only affect the commander's lofty position in everyone's hearts. Some people were irreplaceable. Even if they were dead, they would still be respected and loved. And some people, even if they were dead, would still be reviled by others and would be infamous for 10,000 years. Everyone quiet down. I have something to announce, Lin Feng said slowly. After announcing the great news just now, he did not want to delay any longer. Strike while the iron is hot. Everyone looked at Lin Feng with fanaticism and reverence. Everyone tactfully shut their mouths and did not have the slightest objection. Looking around at everyone, Lin Feng's eyes flashed with a bright light and said, The beast riot is over, and the Sky Martial continent is about to begin rebuilding. I plan to abandon the original structure, merge the four great powers, establish a new order, and unify the Sky Martial continent. Lin Feng's voice resounded, and his words were firm. Everyone in show revealed an ecstatic expression, and the rest did not reveal any shocked expressions. Silence. It was unexpectedly quiet. Lin Feng looked at everyone and asked curiously, Do you all have any objections? What objections can we have? Show will definitely support it. Lan Hiyu laughed heartily. I represent the Sky Martial Army, and I completely agree. Lei Li smiled. Without you, Lin Feng, the Sky Martial continent would have been destroyed. Lei Li's gaze turned cold, and he clenched his fists. Others do not have the qualifications, but Lin Feng, you are more than qualified. Anyone who dares to oppose, I, Lei Li, will be the first to not let them off. I also raised both hands in agreement. Tianqing smiled. With Lin Feng's current reputation, this is a matter of course. Everyone in the hall spoke, and no one objected. In this beast riot, Lin Feng had already used his spirit and strength to conquer everyone, including everyone in the Sky Martial continent. Lin Feng smiled, but he did not expect it to go so smoothly. It was a little out of his expectations. All right, since that is the case, I will not decline. Indeed, just like what Tianqing and Lei Li said, he had the qualifications. There was no need for him to put on an act. His gaze looked around, and finally landed on Ziyao. Looking at the beautiful purple figure, Lin Feng raised his head, and his eyes shone. "Here, I have a second announcement." When his voice fell, there was silence, and everyone's gaze was focused on him. However, at this moment, a series of anxious footsteps came from outside the door. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The storyline of the Sky Martial Continent is about to end. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 349. A familiar figure ran in. Lin Feng looked over. He had met him once before. He was a newly promoted titled martial god from the hunt. "Protector, hunt leader, let's go to the martial god monument," the young man shouted anxiously. Everyone was stunned. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, but a hint of panic flashed across Ziyao's face. In an instant, Lin Feng rushed out. He had a bad premonition. Everyone followed closely behind him. The sound of air being torn apart continued. Whoosh! Lin Feng was the first to arrive. His eyes were like lightning as he looked at the tall martial god monument. His heart trembled. He saw a familiar name at the top of the martial god monument, in the deepest part of the black area. It kept flashing. Moon Empress. Sister. Ziyao was so frightened that her face turned pale. Moon Empress. The expressions of Lan, Yu, and the other hunt members changed. It had been more than 7 months since the Moon Empress entered the 100 Falls ancient ruins. There had been no news of her. But now, that's not right, Tianqing said in surprise. As a bystander, she had a clearer view. Everyone looked at Tianqing in confusion. They did not know what she meant. Indeed, that's not right. Fang Ning's eyes were bright. The name on the martial god monument is a condensation of aura. It might exist or not, but I've never seen it flashing. After Fang Ning's reminder, everyone came to a realization. They looked at the martial god monument. The Moon Empress name kept flashing. They had a strange feeling in their hearts. There must be a reason for this abnormality. However, no one knew the answer. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with confusion. Everyone was even more confused. They could not figure out what was going on. There was only Ziyao. Her beautiful eyes were sparkling. Ziyao opened her red lips slightly, as if she was muttering something. However, there was no sound. No one could hear her. Her ever-changing expression carried a strange light, and her extremely beautiful face was filled with a sacred luster. It was as if Ziyao had sensed something. It was as if she was hiding something. It kept flashing and changing. The name of the Moon Empress was like the stars in the sky. Lin Feng pursed his lips, feeling an ominous premonition in his heart. He suddenly turned his head to look at Ziyao. Seeing Ziyao's abnormal state, Lin Feng's eyes couldn't help but deepen as he called out, "Ziyao? Ziyao." After calling out twice, the colorful light in Ziyao's eyes finally disappeared. She looked over with her clear gaze and asked, "What's wrong, Linda Gu? Are you all right, Ziyao?" Lin Feng asked. Gently shaking her head, Ziyao replied, "I'm fine." There seemed to be a deeper meaning behind his smile. A trace of struggle flashed in Ziyao's eyes. Lin Feng's brows furrowed slightly. He was puzzled. Suddenly, a cry of alarm rang out. In an instant, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the martial god tablet. He saw that the Moon Empress name had stopped flashing. However, it was gradually fading. It faded again, until it disappeared. Bang! Everyone felt as if something had exploded in their heads. Their hearts were heavy. The 7 months of waiting had turned into nothing at this moment. The Moon Empress, in the end, couldn't escape her misfortune and sank into the 100 Falls ancient ruins. The 4 great despairs were indeed places of death. The former 2 strongest humans, the Commander and the Moon Empress, had died one after another. It was as if the era of the Sky Martial Continent had changed. Puff! Lan knelt on the ground and cried bitterly. In the hunt, he and the Moon Empress had a very deep relationship. Yu, Bing Shuang, De Luan Air and the other members of the hunt felt as if their hearts were being cut by knives. 2 lines of tears flowed down. Lin Feng pursed his lips, feeling a bit of pain in his heart. Although his relationship with the Moon Empress wasn't that deep, at least he had received her kindness. A little bit of kindness should be repaid with a gushing spring. Furthermore, the Moon Empress was Zi Yao's biological sister. Zi Yao. Lin Feng suddenly reacted and turned his head worriedly. Knowing the news of her biological sister's death, Zi Yao must be very sad. But the scene in front of him stunned Lin Feng. Zi Yao's face was very calm, as if nothing had happened. Her beautiful eyes had a dim light and seemed to be in a daze, as if she was thinking about something. There were no tears, nor was there an expression of grief. There was only a deep strangeness. Extremely strange. It was completely illogical. Lin Feng frowned slightly. Zi Yao, are you all right? Gently shaking her head, Zi Yao's eyes were still dim, and there was a hint of worry in her expression, as if there was something troubling her. His eyes flickered slightly, looking at the strange expression of the beauty in front of him. Lin Feng had countless doubts, but if Zi Yao didn't say, he wouldn't know. Maybe it's because Zi Yao is too sad. Lin Feng sighed. Other than that, he couldn't think of any other reason. The sadness and sadness didn't last for long. After all, everyone was already mentally prepared for the death of the Moon Empress. After being trapped in the 4 great despairs for more than 7 months, the hope was already slim. Now, they couldn't escape their misfortune. In the Tianwu continent, a grand mourning ceremony was held. Everyone was filled with gratitude as they mourned each and every one of the brave human warriors. In order to fend off the beast horde, they had sacrificed their precious lives, especially the 2 strongest human warriors, the commander and the Moon Empress. However, opportunities and dangers were equal. In the face of the Class 9 beast horde, the strength of the human warriors had undergone an earth-shattering change. Although the number of titled martial gods was still less than 100, the number of novice martial gods far surpassed the titled martial gods. Among them, Zi Yao, Fang Ning, and Xiao Jian were even stronger than the commander and the Moon Empress. As for Lin Feng, needless to say, the name of a hero spread throughout the Tianwu continent. Who didn't know of Lin Feng's terrifying strength? In the Tianwu continent, he was already invincible. Of the 4 great royal cities, the Tianwu royal city was rebuilt and the 5 Origins royal city was being repaired. In every royal city, a statue of Lin Feng was erected, praising his extraordinary contributions to the human race and the Tianwu continent. Repelling the beast horde, protecting the human race, Lin Feng's reputation reached the peak. Very busy, Lin Yun, Zi Yao, Fang Ning, every martial god was extremely busy. After the war, there were too many things to do in the Tianwu continent. It was like reclaiming a wasteland. Every human and every inch of land had to be reorganized and rearranged. Everything was bustling and busy. Lin Yun displayed the boldness of a future monarch, and the establishment of a new order was carried out in an orderly manner. Fang Ning, Xiao Jian, Zi Yao, and Shou's trusted aides already knew of Lin Feng's plan, and in fact, Lin Yun's ability had indeed convinced them. Everyone had their own specialties. For example, Lin Feng, at this moment, he was doing what he was best at. Bang! Bang! Screech! Flames filled the sky, burning the entire land. Countless golden gorilla Tyrannosaurus Rex roared, but were instantly burned to ashes. It was a massacre without bloodshed. Lin Feng floated in the air, holding the ashes in his hand, his eyes cold and indifferent. In less than an incense's time, the golden gorilla Tyrannosaurus Rex tribe within a radius of 1,000,000 li had been completely burned to ashes. Not a single golden gorilla Tyrannosaurus Rex survived. Extermination. Why? The flames of rebirth filled the air. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. Before leaving, do your best to pave the way for Aoyun. The greatest danger for the human race was the magical beasts. On this point, Lin Feng deeply understood and was very clear. No matter how ferocious the 9th-rank beast horde was, no matter how tragic the casualties were. But in the endless wilderness, there were still magical beasts that were hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of times more than the human race. They were still eyeing them covetously. Since there was no way to completely stop the beast horde's rampage, then he would weaken the magical beast's strength and increase the human race's territory. Weaken the enemy and strengthen himself, killing two birds with one stone. Next, Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. He had to make use of every minute to kill as many powerful dragons as possible. With his current strength, even if he wanted to wipe out the entire endless wilderness, there would be no pressure. After killing the golden gorilla Tyrannosaurus Rex tribe, Lin Feng's killing intent continued to explode. With his so sound, he disappeared into the horizon. In 3 days, the human race's territory had doubled. 10 days later, the human race's territory had reached 4 times its original size. Lin Feng had slaughtered for an entire month, expanding the territory. The Sky Martial Continent's area had expanded by 10 times. What did this mean? What did it mean? The human race would have a wider territory to exist in and would be able to reproduce faster. As the human population increased, the number of martial artists would naturally increase, forming a stable cycle. Slowly, bit by bit, they were able to contend against the beast horde. Under the pressure and tempering, they were constantly improving. It's about time. Lin Feng let out a long sigh. After continuously slaughtering for a month, he felt a little tired. Even if the flames of rebirth were limitless, even if his stamina was endless, he was still a human. Furthermore, 10 times of the territory was already enough. After the beast horde's rampage, the demonic beasts have already suffered great losses and will not be able to cause much trouble in the short term. On the other hand, the human race, with enough territory and resources, will be able to flourish and develop. I believe that under Ah Yun's leadership, they will become stronger and stronger. Lin Feng nodded. This was all he could do. As long as the existence of the beast horde did not threaten the safety of the human race, there would be no disadvantages. With competition, with danger, there would be improvement. In fact, the endless wilderness is too big. With my current strength, if I want to destroy the entire endless wilderness, it will take at least a few decades, right? Lin Feng laughed, feeling helpless. Indeed, it was beyond his ability. It's about time for me to return. In 2 more days, it will be the big day of the Sky Martial Continent. And also, my big day. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with satisfaction. Thinking of the beautiful purple figure in his heart, he could not help but feel a deep sense of warmth. The love between him and Ziyao, on the 14th of March, would blossom and bear fruit. Finally, the day that he had been waiting for had arrived. Strive to end the first chapter today. Next chapter 21:00. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 350. March 14th. It was an ordinary day, but because of one person, it had become extraordinary. Lin Feng. Noon, in the 4 great imperial city, the sky lit up. Lin Feng's appearance caused the entire Sky Martial Continent to be in an uproar. Humanity's hero, the strongest martial artist without a doubt. From today onwards, there will be no more 4 great powerhouses, no more 4 great imperial cities, no more 16 counties. Lin Feng's expression was calm, but every word he said was like a bomb, causing everyone to be shocked. They were all stunned. The entire Sky Martial Continent was in silence. I will lead all the martial gods and establish a new order. Lin Feng's eyes were bright and full of expression. Humanity's territory has already expanded by 10 times. Sky Martial Continent will enter a new era. Lin Feng's loud and clear voice reverberated in every imperial city, causing everyone to stare blankly at the sky. The shocking words kept reverberating in their ears. Everyone's eyes were filled with astonishment. The birth of a new era. Sky Martial Continent will establish a unified powerhouse, a kingdom, and the name of the kingdom will be Show. This new order will be born to protect. Protect Sky Marshall Continent. Protect every citizen. Lin Feng's eyes were bright, his expression overflowing, and I, Lin Feng, will take over the throne and become the first country lord. The heavy news descended. Everyone was shocked, their eyes filled with shock. But in an instant, Sky Marshall Continent erupted. Unprecedented emotions, excited shouts, crazy shouts at that moment were all ignited by Lin Feng's words. Everyone's face was filled with excitement. Their shouts were hoarse. Long live! That's great! Everyone was overjoyed, shrouded in an ecstatic atmosphere. Loud and clear hero songs were sung. In the streets and alleys, people held hands, their faces brimming with happiness. Lin Feng, this name, had long become a legend. One of a kind. No one objected to Lin Feng's establishment of a new order and the establishment of a unified force. Just as Tianqing had said, with Lin Feng's prestige, this matter was something that would happen naturally, and there was no need to worry, because in the hearts of everyone in the Sky Marshall Continent, Lin Feng was already a king. The uncrowned king. Now, he was just officially wearing the crown. With Lin Feng's promise and his protection, everyone believed that the new order would bring a new era to the Marshall Heaven continent. They would have a brand new and beautiful future. Here, I have another announcement to make. Lin Feng smiled. Today, I will officially take Zi Yao as my wife. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His voice was gentle as he said, to celebrate today, the Sky Marshall Continent will celebrate for 3 days, holding a banquet. Everyone, let's have a good time. Boom! The entire continent was in an uproar. Loud whistles and endless cheers filled the air. A joyous atmosphere enveloped every inch of land. Double happiness. Sky City. It was bustling with noise and excitement. Ziyao's face was bright red, brimming with happiness. She had waited for this day for so long. Congratulatory voices and words of praise rang out one after another. Ziyao was wearing an exquisitely embroidered red robe, which completely accentuated her beautiful figure. Her face was flushed red, and a slight blush fell on her face, making her look even more beautiful, like a budding flower. So beautiful, Ziyao, Lin Feng said with a smile. The evening sky shone with the light of the setting sun, complementing this beautiful scene. Looking at Ziyao, looking at his future chess piece, Lin Feng's eyes were filled with gentleness. He had finally walked together with Ziyao. There were no more obstacles in front of him. Linda Gu. Ziyao pursed her lips, revealing a satisfied smile. Gently hugging her beautiful body and smelling Ziyao's fragrance, Lin Feng bent down and gently kissed her soft red lips. Tasting the sweet taste, their two hearts were tightly glued together. Ziyao moaned. She was incomparably shy, but she still cooperated with him awkwardly. After a moment, their lips parted and their eyes met, full of tenderness and sweetness. Let's go. Lin Feng held her soft hand and led the blushing Ziyao forward. At this time, Lin Wanqing was sitting upright with a benevolent smile. Her pale face, which had been ill for a long time, was now rosy. She had long since recovered. According to the customs of the Sky Marshall Continent, as long as the elders witnessed the marriage, they were husband and wife. He pulled Ziyao and gently knelt on the red praying mat. First bow to heaven and earth. Second bow to your parents. Husband and wife bow to each other. The ceremony is complete. Holding hands and feeling each other's warmth, Lin Feng and Ziyao's hearts were filled with sweetness. After going through trials and hardships, they were finally husband and wife. Congratulations, big brother. Lin Yun smiled. Big brother, sister-in-law. Shui shouted happily. Good boy. You've gained both fame and beauty, huh? Xiao Jian said. Let's be happy. Tianqing smiled. All the martial artists congratulated Lin Feng and Ziyao. On this day, everyone's hearts were filled with joy. They were happy for them. After going through the baptism of the beast towards rampage, after going through so many storms, the two of them had survived and tied the knot. This love was the same as the sky Marshall continent. They had a beautiful future. In the bridal chamber, there was a joyous atmosphere. The dragon and phoenix candles were lit, illuminating Zi Yao's bashful face, making it even redder. Feeling the warmth of the beauty in his arms, Lin Feng gently caressed her beautiful face, his eyes filled with tenderness. From now on, you are my Lin Feng's wife. And Linda go. Zi Yao pursed her lips, lowering her head with a bashful look. The warm candlelight flickered, and a charming atmosphere was transmitted. Their body temperature seemed to be about to meld each other. Lin Feng lowered his head, looking for those soft lips, greedily absorbing the sweet juice, while Zi Yao seemed to have thrown away her shackles and passionately responded. Hugging each other tightly, their feelings quickly rose. The curtains on the wedding bed were pulled down, and their clothes were taken off. A faint red light shone, and the two fiery bodies felt each other's warmth, and in this night, they were intimately joined together. In the bridal chamber, only the mandarin ducks were envious, not the immortals. One night passed. It was a short night, but it felt very long. Many things had unknowingly changed. Hua! Opening his eyes, Lin Feng stretched. He had slept very deeply, and in fact, he had not had a good sleep for a long time. Looking at the dark red smear on the bedsheet, Lin Feng could not help but smile. He looked around and called out softly, "Zi Yao." No one answered, and Lin Feng could not help but let out a soft cry of surprise. As soon as he got up, his eyes suddenly caught a glimpse of a white envelope on the mahogany table. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly, and his heart shook for no reason. This envelope was not there yesterday. Did Zi Yao write it to me? Lin Feng softly murmured. He picked up the envelope, and his eyes immediately lit up. Sure enough, at the top of the envelope, there was a beautiful handwriting, and it was clearly written by Zi Yao. A line of words was clearly written on it. Opened by Linda Ge. Pursing his lips, Lin Feng's brows immediately furrowed. His heart thumped, and he vaguely felt that something was not right. Lin Feng quickly opened the envelope. Linda Ge, by the time you see this letter, Zi Yao will have already left. Just by reading the first line, Lin Feng's expression changed greatly. His mind exploded, and he fell into a daze. His breathing became hurried, and Lin Feng suppressed his tightened heart and continued reading. To be able to become your wife and give everything to you is Zi Yao's dream. Now that my wish has been fulfilled, Zi Yao has no more regrets. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat, and his face was pale. Something terrifying seemed to have happened. For my sister, Zi Yao had no other choice. Don't worry, Linda Ge. Zi Yao is very safe and has only temporarily returned to the Purple Moon Clan. The Purple Moon Clan? Lin Feng's eyes brightened, but when he saw this, his heart finally calmed down. No matter what, it was fine as long as Zi Yao was fine. For my sister? The Moon Empress? Lin Feng's expression changed, and he immediately remembered the scene in front of the martial god tablet. Zi Yao's abnormal behavior was a sign. He thought that she was just overly sad, but he didn't expect that there was more to it. I'm so stupid. Lin Feng clenched his fists. He should have noticed it at that time. Lin Feng let out a long breath. No matter how much he regretted it, it was useless. He gritted his teeth and continued reading. Zi Yao will work hard to cultivate, and the next time we meet, Zi Yao will not be a burden to you. Take care, Linda Ge. Zi Yao will miss you. When he read the last line, Lin Feng felt a deep sense of reluctance. He could feel Zi Yao's state of mind when she wrote this letter, and he could even feel the tears in her eyes. His heart ached. Forever loving your little wife, Zi Yao. When he saw the signature at the end, Lin Feng felt a little absent-minded. It was a kind of faint emptiness. Zi Yao was gone. He didn't know when he would meet her again. In the letter, she only mentioned a few words. The only thing he knew was that Zi Yao was very safe. However, it seemed that she had no choice but to return to the Purple Moon Clan to save the Moon Empress. Her words were filled with reluctance and helplessness. Clearly, this was not Zi Yao's intention, but she had no choice. What kind of existence is the Purple Moon Clan? Lin Feng frowned. He had never heard Zi mention her origins, including the Moon Empress. Her origins seemed to be a mystery. Also, what did Zi mean when she said, "Work hard to cultivate"? Lin Feng's expression kept changing, and he seemed to be deep in thought. Although she had only read it once, she remembered every single word and sentence clearly. She could completely feel the reluctance and helplessness in Ziyao's heart. Work hard to cultivate. Wait for me, Ziyao. I will definitely come and find you. Lin Feng nodded solemnly and clenched his right fist. Although they were separated, it was only temporary. As long as Ziyao was safe, it was enough. After carefully putting the letter back into the envelope and gently closing it, Lin Feng put it into his purple ring. Douling World. Lin Feng let out a long breath, and his eyes brightened. Next chapter, 1 o'clock. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 351. Here comes the problem. Sitting quietly in the cultivation room, Lin Feng frowned. Previously, because of the existence of the Netherworld ship and Toto, he had never thought of one thing: how to enter the Douling world. But now, the Netherworld seal had lost its effect. The Netherworld ship seemed to have fallen into a deep slumber. Even Toto had suddenly disappeared and could not be contacted at all. It had been a month since he came out from the Scorching Cave. In the training base, the path to the inner layer of the Netherworld ship was blocked. The Netherworld ship had fallen into a deep slumber. It seems that the backup astral sources have been used up. This is troublesome. Lin Feng let out a long sigh. No matter if it was his father, Ziyao, or his teacher, Bailey Feng. If he wanted to cultivate and move forward, he had to jump out of the Tianwu continent and walk towards a wider world. Now, he was like a frog at the bottom of a well. What he saw was only the sky above his head. Father once said that the Tianwu continent is in the Douling world, 90% of the ocean. The Douling world has millions of islands. The Tianwu continent is just one of them. Perhaps I can fly out of the Tianwu continent directly? Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. It was indeed a stupid idea. However, there were too many unknown and terrifying things in the boundless ocean. That was a world where demonic beasts ran rampant. From the demonic beast record, Lin Feng knew that most of the demonic beasts lived in the boundless ocean. Furthermore, those were the demonic beasts of the Douling world. It was too dangerous. It's very difficult to find land. Lin Feng sighed softly. As far as he knew, the ocean of the Douling world was so vast that even a martial artist might not be able to travel through it in their lifetime. Boundless. 7 days. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. If I can't think of any other way in 7 days, then I will take this path. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His heart was firm. So what if it was dangerous? His journey to this point had never been smooth sailing. He had to enter the Douling world. Ziyao's departure did not affect Shou. So, Ziao had already decided long ago. Lin Feng lightly shook his head. During this month, Ziyao had successively distributed the authority in her hands to Lan, Yu, Feng Ning, and the others whom she could trust. This included Lin Yun, who held the true authority now. In fact, regardless of whether it was Lin Feng or Ziyao, the departure of the two of them wouldn't have much of an impact on the newly born Shou Kingdom, because the house had been built very firmly. What kind of existence is the Purple Moon Clan? Ziyao's background and the Moon Empress. What secrets are they hiding? Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he pondered. He wanted to know more. Also, the disappearance of the Moon Empress is related to the 100 Falls ancient ruins. Ziyao's departure has something to do with the Moon Monarch. Is there a connection? After calming himself down, Lin Feng continued to analyze the situation. Everything seemed to be connected, but he couldn't find the matching point. After pondering for a long time, Lin Feng let out a long breath and stood up with bright eyes. He couldn't find the answer because he knew too little. There was one person who he knew, definitely more than him. The Moon Empress, Ziyao. Lan's eyes were filled with deep memories. Looking at Lan, Lin Feng waited quietly. In the show, the one who was closest to the Moon Empress was Lan. She was her true confidant. I want to know everything about them, Lin Feng said softly. Lan, tell me everything you know. Yes, I watched the Moon Empress and Ziyao grow up. When Lan's voice entered his ears, Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up. Lan recalled slowly. Their aptitudes were very good. No, they were very good. Especially Ziyao. She was even more heaven-defying. Lin Feng interrupted. What about their background? What about their parents? I don't know. Lan shook her head and said, It was Emperor Li who brought them here. Emperor Li? Lin Feng was stunned. The previous ruler of the show gave up the position to the Moon Empress. Lan looked at the thoughtful Lin Feng and smiled. Emperor Li was an expert of the same era as the heaven-breaking martial god. In terms of seniority, there was no one older than him in the entire Tianwu continent. It was only because of his limited aptitude that he was unable to break through. As the Moon Empress grew, her strength surpassed her father. Emperor Li was relieved to hand over the show to the Moon Empress, and he entered the ancient ruins of the 100 Falls. What? The ancient ruins of the 100 Falls again? Lin Feng's expression kept changing, but he didn't expect there to be so many twists and turns. Looking at Lin Feng's surprised expression, Lan smiled mysteriously. If your majesty wants to know about the Moon Empress and Ziyao's background, then go ask Emperor Li. He will tell you everything you want to know. Apart from him, no one else can answer your doubts. Lin Feng nodded slightly, and suddenly his expression changed dramatically. Wait, Emperor Li. He came out of the ancient ruins of the 100 Falls alive? Lin Feng was shocked beyond words. Yes, Lan nodded seriously. Emperor Li is the only warrior who survived the Four Perilous Lands. But for this, he also paid a heavy price. It seems that he was seriously injured, and his strength was less than 10%. What's worse is that his face has completely aged. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. A warrior's cultivation was to strengthen the vitality of his cells. Ordinary martial emperors were already able to prevent themselves from aging. As for titled martial gods, there was no need to mention them. But Peng. Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. A figure appeared in his mind, and Lin Feng gently opened his mouth. That's right. Lan looked at Lin Feng's surprised expression and nodded with a smile. Not only do you know Emperor Li, you've seen him many times. He is Elder Sunday. Lan's voice entered his ears, and Lin Feng's heart thumped rapidly. Sure enough, it was exactly as he had guessed. Training base. In the quenching pool, Elder Sun turned around and couldn't help but smile when he saw the visitor. You're really here, Monarch. Elder Sun's smile was a little awe-inspiring. I didn't expect that the little kid from back then would become a famous hero now. I'm really old, and I don't even know when you're standing behind me. Elder Sun, you're joking, Lin Feng said humbly. Monarch, you're here for Ziyao, right? Elder Sun sighed softly. Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. Ziyao came to see you, Elder Sun. Elder Sun didn't hide it and said softly, she came to say goodbye. She has been very obedient since she was a child. In fact, she is sadder than anyone to make such a decision. I know. Lin Feng nodded. This point from between the lines he could completely feel. You came to see me because of the ancient ruins of the 100 Falls? Elder Sun asked directly. Yes. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Elder Sun, please tell me. Elder Sun must know more than anyone else since he could come out alive from the ancient ruins of the 100 Falls. With an inexplicable smile, Elder Sun looked at Lin Feng and said slowly, If you want to find Ziyao, the ancient ruins of the 100 Falls is not your answer. Lin Feng's face was full of disappointment, but Elder Sun's eyes lit up. But if you want to go further and longer on the path of a martial artist, then you must enter the ancient ruins of the 100 Falls. Lin Feng's heart trembled as he stared at old Sunday. He seemed to understand something. Because Elder Sun paused and said seriously, It is the only one of the 4 forbidden lands that has the key to the Douling world. The so-called forbidden lands are only for ordinary martial artists. Go, Lin Feng, with your current strength. You can enter the ancient ruins of the 100 Falls. The road was clear. It was clear in front of him. Lin Feng's eyes shone with a scorching light as his heart pounded. The light that he had been looking for these days had appeared. There was no need to hesitate, as long as go down decisively. Brother, are we really leaving? Shui sobbed softly. Feng Lin Wanqing's eyes were full of worry. She hesitated for a long time, but still couldn't say it. She knew that her son's character was the same as her husband's. Firm, decisive, and stubborn. Don't worry, Mom, sister. Lin Feng hugged the two gently and felt the sincere affection. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart. This was the purest and most selfless feeling in the world. It was the same even if they were not related by blood. This was family. Big brother will be fine. Lin Yun clenched his right fist and said with a smile. Of course, big brother is the best. Shui raised his head proudly with tears in his eyes. Be careful when you get there, Feng. Lin Wanqing said with concern. Lin Feng nodded and said, Mom, after settling down in the Douling world, I will find a way to come back. Feeling reluctant, Lin Feng looked at his brother Lin Yun. Yun, I'll leave Mom and sister to you. Take good care of them, okay? Don't worry, big brother, Lin Yun said with a smile. Suddenly, as if he thought of something, Lin Yun took out a white envelope and handed it over. I didn't have time to give it to you, brother. Lin Feng smiled. Indeed, they were both very busy recently. The two brothers hadn't met for a long time. Taking the envelope and glancing at the domineering handwriting, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Dad! The light flashed and disappeared. Lin Feng put the envelope away quietly. I'm leaving Mom, brother, sister. Lin Feng nodded gently. Feeling the three reluctant gazes, Lin Feng pursed his lips and suppressed the trembling in his heart. He turned around and left. The path of a warrior was a lonely one. He bid farewell to his family and the people in the hunt. Lin Feng came to the 100 Falls ancient ruins alone. His eyes were burning. The matters in the Sky Martial continent were all settled. With his brother Lin Yun in charge, he had no more worries. He stepped on this thorny road with peace of mind. This was his choice. Looking at the white light in front of him, like a spiral passage of time, Lin Feng didn't have the slightest fear in his eyes. His expression was full of desire and challenge. This was the path that was most suitable for him. It was also the path that he had to take. Douling world, I'm coming. Lin Feng smiled. Episode 17 and the first part of the Sky Martial continent ends. Lin Feng embarks on a new journey. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 352. It's been 2 months. Meng, there's not even a bit of telepathy. The red-clothed woman, Qi Yan's eyes were filled with panic. The middle-aged man, Qi Meng, frowned. His thick eyebrows were about to fall off. Indeed, he had not sensed his son's aura for 2 months. With his strength, no matter how far away he was, he should have sensed something. But now, what should we do, Meng? What should we do? Qi Yan bit her lips as tears fell. The higher the grade of the bloodline, the harder it was to continue the bloodline. She only had one son. These days, she missed him so much that she fell ill. Qi Meng sighed softly. His eyes flashed with sorrow. He bit his lips and said hoarsely, something might have happened to Qiong. No matter how unwilling she was, she had to admit it. Qi Yan felt dizzy. Her vision turned white, and she almost fainted. 2 lines of clear tears slid down her cheeks. Qi Yan's heart ached to the extreme, yet she knew her own situation. She wasn't like her husband, who possessed great potential. Her path of cultivation had already come to an end, and it would be difficult for her to advance any further. Her only hope was her son, Qi Qiong. But now she heard such bad news. Qiong has the heavenly flame protecting him. How could something happen to him? Qi Yan screamed with a distorted face. The Douling world is so big. There are mountains beyond mountains. Even you and I can't guarantee our safety, let alone Xiong. Qi Ming was rather calm. He suppressed the sorrow in his heart. Suddenly, Qi Ming's gaze changed. The slight change in his expression could not be hidden from Qi Yan's eyes. She asked, "What's wrong, Ming?" Qi Ming remained silent. His eyes sparkled as he focused all his attention. Qi Ming's gaze changed from surprise to doubt. Then, it changed from doubt to flickering. In the end, it revealed a cold light. He was like a ferocious beast. He clenched his fists and shouted crazily. "Ah! Ah!" His loud voice was filled with boundless anger. Qi Ming's expression changed, causing Qi Yan's face to turn pale. Her body was on the verge of collapse. Qi Ming's eyes were blood red. His voice trembled. "I sensed a very weak aura just now. It was Qiong, but there was no aura of life. Only a trace of imprint remained. Qiong-er's soul had been devoured." Bang! His head seemed to explode. Qi Yan's body trembled violently, and a chill ran down his spine. Even though he was mentally prepared, he still couldn't take it when he heard the news. Plop! Qi Yan collapsed onto the ground and fainted. The 100 Falls Ancient Ruins. This is one of the 4 most dangerous lands? Lin Feng was a little confused. However, he did not expect that he would arrive at such a place after entering the spiral passageway. As far as the eye could see, there were green mountains and clear waters, bird song, and fragrant flowers. The mountains and rivers formed a scene that was like a paradise. This place didn't have the slightest feeling of being a danger zone. Using his mind's eye, he could sense that the surrounding air was filled with heaven and earth origin energy, far surpassing that of the sky martial continent. The spiritual energy here was rather abundant. What a dense aura! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. With the density of the spiritual energy here, cultivating here would definitely yield twice the results with half the effort. Just as he was thinking about this, he suddenly felt an explosion in his head, and an incomparably powerful force filled the sky. It was an extremely powerful pressure. "Welcome to the 100 Falls, little guy." The voice went straight to his ears. Lin Feng raised his head in shock. The clouds in the sky faintly pieced together to form a human face. It was hazy and indistinct, but there was a pair of eyes as bright as the stars. Straight to the bottom of his heart. It was as if he could see through everything. There were no secrets. What a terrifying power. Lin Feng was secretly shocked. This existence was like the might of the heavens. As long as he was willing, he could smash him into pieces at any time. The strength was extremely terrifying. "Tell me your wish." The oppressive voice did not seem to have any malicious intent, but it made Lin Feng shocked, extremely surprised. Before entering, he had asked Elder Sun about the 100 Falls Ancient Ruins, but Elder Sun did not tell him. "Enter, and you will know." This was the only thing Elder Sun said. "Wish? What's the connection with the most dangerous lands?" Lin Feng's eyes changed. He was a little confused. He had a lot of questions. Entering the 100 Falls Ancient Ruins, he was confused. But the purpose of his trip was very clear. "I want to enter the Douling world." Lin Feng's eyes were burning. He said seriously, "Land or sea?" The dignified voice sounded faintly. "Land." Lin Feng did not hesitate. If he wanted to enter the sea, why would he need to go through so much trouble? He could just fly out of the sky martial continent. Just as the thought came to his mind, the dignified voice asked again, "Random teleportation or fixed teleportation?" Lin Feng smiled. He knew nothing about the Douling world. Even if he wanted to teleport to a fixed location, he did not know where to go. Random teleportation. Lin Feng nodded lightly. There was complete silence. Just as Lin Feng was puzzled, suddenly, a huge wheel appeared in front of him. The white chassis flashed with colorful lights. A slender needle was spinning at an extremely fast speed. Lin Feng was shocked. He was puzzled. In an instant, around him, rays of resplendent light appeared. It was a small ball of various colors, colorful and bright, filled with enticing light. Enter the Douling world. Land. Random teleportation. The dignified voice sounded. Lin Feng frowned. He had a bad premonition. The small balls around him increased. The number kept increasing. Lin Feng's eyes slowly lit up. 3 wishes fulfilled. The dignified voice sounded. Lin Feng's mouth twitched. He was speechless. He only had 1 wish. How did it become 3 wishes? And what does fulfill mean? Before he could finish his thought, the number of spinning needles on the huge roulette suddenly increased to 3. It spun rapidly, and around him, the small balls were densely packed, emitting a dazzling light, but it did not increase anymore. In an instant, pa, 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 the 3 rapidly spinning needles stopped, forming the shape of a bamboo dragonfly. On the wheel, the place where the needle landed suddenly shone. Even the small balls around him were emitting a brilliant light. Lin Feng was a little confused. He had no idea what was going on. Swoosh! A clear light shone. The small balls around his body had all disappeared, leaving behind only 3 of them. 1 white, 1 red, and 1 orange. Also formed the shape of a bamboo dragonfly, shining with a dazzling light, full of temptation. Vaguely, Lin Feng seemed to understand something. You have passed the 3 tests: Dwarf Waterfall, Aging Waterfall, and Dead Spirit Waterfall. Your 3 wishes will be fulfilled. Good luck. The dignified voice disappeared in an instant, and the strong feeling of pressure also disappeared. The sky returned to its normal color: white clouds, blue sky, and bright sun. This place was still like a paradise. It was fascinating, but the white, red, and orange balls were emitting a tempting light. Everything just now was not an illusion. The 100 Falls Ancient Ruins. So this is the 100 Falls Ancient Ruins. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. The doubts in his heart suddenly cleared. No wonder the Moon Empress came here that day. It turned out that there was such a secret in the 100 Falls Ancient Ruins. Fulfilling his wish, although the price was very high. But after all, it was a way, a road, even if it was very difficult. This place was like a wish pool. To fulfill a wish, one had to pass a test. And it was very stingy. I only have 1 wish, but it forced me to make 3 wishes. Thinking of the conversation just now, Lin Feng breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he chose to be teleported randomly. It was a blessing in disguise. If he had chosen to be teleported to a fixed location, he could have made 5 or 6 wishes in a minute. Then, it would be really troublesome. White, red, orange. Lin Feng muttered to himself as he sensed the 3 balls. The feeling of energy increased in order. The white ball gave him a feeling of fear, the red ball was already very dangerous, and the orange ball was very scary. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. This was a pure feeling. After activating the Yang Fate Astrolabe, his sensing ability had increased greatly. Even with his current strength, he could feel danger, so one could imagine the difficulty of this test. How difficult? It seems that for every wish, there is 1 more test. The difficulty keeps increasing. Lin Feng stared at the orange ball, his eyes flickering. Fortunately, he only had 3 wishes. If there were a 4th or 5th wish, the difficulty would be unbelievably high. In this place, once one made a choice, there was no room for regret. He could only brace himself and take the test. Dwarf Waterfall, Aging Waterfall, Dead Spirit Waterfall. Lin Feng muttered one by one. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Looking at the red ball, Lin Feng was shocked and understood. I understand now. When Elder Sun entered this place, he probably got the Aging Waterfall like me. He failed the test, so, Aging. Elder Sun, are you trying to protect me? Lin Feng asked softly. At this moment, he finally understood why Elder Sun did not mention a word about the 100 waterfalls. He was afraid that he would make other wishes. Thank you. Lin Feng nodded slightly. Humans were always greedy and had desires. But in this place, the greater the desire, the greater the danger. This was a place that devoured people without spitting out their bones. It looked beautiful, but it was poisonous. Phew, Lin Feng exhaled deeply. Looking at the white ball, his eyes shone brightly. He touched it lightly, and his heart trembled violently. In an instant, a huge suction force came from the small white ball. It was incomparably majestic. It was the same as the heavenly might just now. He could not resist at all. Instantly, Lin Feng felt a strong sense of dizziness, and the world spun around him. In front of him, a white light flashed violently. Swoosh! Lin Feng disappeared without a trace. There are only 2 chapters today, so I have to make some time to write the outline. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 353. 9th grade Spring Waterfall, Dwarf Waterfall. Kill the only red dwarf. Time limit, 24 hours. If you fail the test, you will become a dwarf. A light voice sounded beside his ear. Lin Feng was instantly dazed, and his expression changed. Especially when he heard the last sentence, his heart jumped. Become a dwarf? Lin Feng pursed his lips, and his expression was strange. The price of failure was too great. Before he could finish his thought, the white light in front of him dispersed like smoke. It was as if he had been sucked into a strange water world. Clear spring water flowed down from the mountain rocks. The sound of the water flowing was slow and not hurried. The brook water gurgled, and it matched the environment of the outside world. A huge circular ring was clearly visible in the sky. The spring water in the 12 grids flowed down. The speed was not fast, but it was visible to the naked eye. It represents 24 hours? Lin Feng nodded. It was obvious and not hard to guess. This was the location of the first stage of the trial. Dwarf Waterfall. Such dense water elements. Lin Feng praised, his eyes shining. Although the spiritual energy in the outside world was dense, all kinds of origin energies were equal. But here, the water elements took up more than 60% of the energy, an astonishing ratio. In other words, the strength of the martial gods and celestial spirit masters of the other 4 elements would be have here. Lin Feng smiled, but did not care too much. Whether it was the fire of devouring or the fire of rebirth, they were all provided by the Phoenix natal chart. Like the little celestial hound's heavenly fire, they existed in his body. The strength he could unleash was not affected by the outside world. Moreover, the martial gods who relied on their aura to fight could also unleash their full strength here. The ones at a disadvantage were only the martial gods and celestial spirit masters of the other 4 elements. Only 24 hours. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly, and his mind was completely focused. The test in front of him was not an ordinary one. It was a test between life and death. If he failed, the consequences would be disastrous. Kill the red dwarf. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. Each opened his mind's eye, and the Phoenix natal plate started to spin rapidly. The amazing sensing power spread out like a spider web. Even though the water elemental energy here was extremely strong, especially below the stream, it was difficult to investigate in detail due to the obstruction of the water flow, but he was no longer the same as before. His strength was strong enough. There really is an enemy. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. Although the range of his senses had decreased sharply, he still found 6 energy light spots. That was the aura of life. It was the same as him, a celestial river-class existence. Very strong. Lin Feng slightly understood the situation. His body immediately moved with a whoosh sound and went straight to the nearest light spot. In this heaven and earth that had lost its balance, although he could not fully utilize his movement technique speed, even if he only used half of his strength, it would still be sufficient. Over there, Lin Feng quickly found it. The first light, it was a midget who was only half his height. The midget was wearing loose and strange clothes. Its ears were long, just like a rabbit's. Its nose was thick and big, and its eyes were small. It looked quite ugly. However, the aura it emitted was not inferior to Yi Chen's at all. I wonder what level of celestial river class it is, Lin Feng thought to himself. In fact, Lin Feng did not know what level his strength had reached. The Netherworld ship was closed, and there were no resources for cultivation. At this moment, he was also confused. However, there was one thing he could deduce. The test here is based on the strength of the warrior, Lin Feng thought to himself. It wasn't hard to figure out how to draw inferences from one case. If the difficulty of the first test reached the Celestial River class, then the Moon Empress and Old Sun who had entered before him would have died. They would not have any chance to survive. However, this Celestial River class midget, Tim, it's simple. Lin Feng smiled confidently. No matter how strong this midget was, could it be stronger than the little celestial dog? Let's test his strength and see how strong he is. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he made his decision. At the very least, he would have some confidence in his heart. Fight! The Nightmare Demon Spear appeared in Lin Feng's hand. He did not use flames. He only used the pure strength of the war god. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Let's see how strong this midget is. At this moment, the midget also noticed Lin Feng's existence. Its eyes were wide open, and its killing intent was revealed. Emperor Shun's supreme qi. Lin Feng shouted. The bright energy spread around his body and surged crazily. The innate skill Black Fog followed him like a shadow. Lin Feng's figure became ghostly and terrifying, and his speed increased crazily. After experiencing rising from the ashes, Lin Feng's body had already transformed. Not to mention his strength and defense. Just his speed alone did not need the help of the whirlpool. It was far better than before. So fast, Lin Feng was extremely shocked. He lit up the Yang Fate Astrolabe and controlled the flames of rebirth. These days, he had never used a spear. He also did not know that the strength of the war god had reached such a level. One step, and he arrived in an instant. Skybreaker. Lin Feng's eyes were as bright as the stars. The power made him feel afraid. It was extremely strong. The Nightmare Demon Spear in his hand stabbed out like a ghost in the darkness and became nothingness. When he stepped into space, everything around him disappeared. He once again felt that clear feeling. The existence of the Yang Fate Astrolabe allowed him to control his body as he wished. Returning to the origin, the fifth realm of the spear technique, perfect. Qi. It directly pierced through. The power of the Nightmare Demon Spear was fully displayed at this moment. Even without the flames of devouring, just the addition of Emperor Shun's supreme qi. The power was already extremely terrifying. It's because my body has transformed. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he pulled out the Nightmare Demon Spear. He was very clear in his heart how powerful his attack was. Even if he faced the small celestial hound again, it could cause fatal damage to it. Any attack, when trained to a certain level, it's all very fatal. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully, and his eyes were filled with satisfaction. The body was the foundation. The stronger the body, the more power it could display. His body after rising from the ashes was completely different from before. This dwarf's reaction speed is very fast, but his defense is very weak. After a short exchange, Lin Feng quickly came to a conclusion. Looking at the dead dwarf, whose body was gradually dimming, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. He suddenly caught a glimpse of a tiny transparent water droplet quietly floating in the air, and could not help but let out a soft sound of surprise. What is that? Lin Feng was puzzled. In his senses, the water droplet was filled with water energy. Lin Feng moved his body and reached out to grab it. Sure enough, a warm stream of water seemed to nourish his body. Lin Feng was greatly surprised and was just sighing. Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded in his ears. I forgot to remind you, every time you kill a dwarf, there will be 2 more dwarves in the dwarf waterfall, and the dwarves' hostility towards you will increase. The voice was very calm, as if it was talking about something unrelated, but it made Lin Feng smile bitterly. Kill one, but there will be 2 more? Then won't there be more the more I kill? Lin Feng said helplessly. He had no idea how to find a red dwarf within 24 hours. But now, there was such a situation. Looks like this test is not about fighting ability, but movement technique. Lin Feng nodded slightly. If he wanted to find a red dwarf without killing the other dwarves, the first thing he had to do was to avoid these ordinary dwarves. Otherwise, they would be like the dwarf just now. revealing their killing intent when they saw him. But Lin Feng looked curiously at the water droplet in his hand. The abundant water energy gave him a very comfortable feeling, as if it was a part of his body. Pursing his lips, Lin Feng hesitated slightly, and then swallowed the water droplet. In an instant, the water droplet's energy spread out like ripples. The Phoenix natal chart instantly lit up, and the fourth light spot lit up brightly. Most of the water droplet's energy was absorbed in the blink of an eye, and only a small part merged into his body, making him feel refreshed and gentle. It was a kind of comfort that came from the bottom of his heart. Oh my God! Water natal chart? Lin Feng was shocked, as he did not expect this water droplet to be absorbed by the water natal chart. His heart of origin had turned into a Phoenix natal chart by chance, and although it had improved his aptitude and strength, the difficulty of leveling up had increased tenfold or even hundredfold. The Phoenix could light up the natal chart of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. It did not need to do anything, and when it reached the peak, it would light up all of them and become a saint. But for him, he needed to light them up one by one. Otherwise, he would be trapped in the Star River level forever. According to Duo, the simplest and most direct method was to kill other divine beasts and seize their natal chart. But those were divine beasts. With his strength, it was no different from an ant trying to shake a tree. This is a good chance. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. By killing these dwarfs, he would be able to obtain the water droplet energy. Most importantly, the dwarfs here were endless. Kill one, and two more would appear. It was inexhaustible, but I have to find that red dwarf first. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully. It was important to increase his strength, but lighting up the water natal chart was not something that could be done in a day. The water droplet energy was sufficient, but the amount of energy needed to light up the water natal chart was an astronomical figure. It was no doubt too stupid to leave everything out. First, he had to find the red dwarf. Then, he would have enough time to kill the dwarfs. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he quickly made a decision. In fact, he had to make a decision here. It might be better for heavenly martial artists, but for heavenly deities, the gentle water droplet energy could directly strengthen their body. It was simply something that could only be encountered by chance. However, for Lin Feng's abnormal body, the effect of the water droplet was undoubtedly greatly reduced. Moreover, more than half of it was absorbed by the water natal chart. 24 hours. Lin Feng nodded. Without any delay, he rushed out like a gust of wind. He had to make full use of all the time he had. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 354. What a big water world! Lin Feng exclaimed in surprise. This world of clear spring water was like a mini ocean. The stream gurgled, forming many tributaries. Following the direction of the stream, Lin Feng carefully avoided the dwarves in the waterfall. With his sensing ability that covered a large area, even though his movement technique wasn't that strong, he still hadn't attracted the attention of any dwarves. But the deeper he went, the more concentrated the dwarves were. At this moment, with his mind's eye, the resplendent star-like light spots were increasing in number. This was a great test for him. It seems like it won't be as easy as I thought. Lin Feng thought. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Lin Feng's body continuously shuttled through the waterfall. Like a fish in water, Lin Feng continuously made turns. With his mind's eye, a map appeared in his mind, drawing the path and guiding him forward. Lin Feng focused his mind, not daring to be careless. In this mysterious and unknown domain, any carelessness would affect the result of the test. Lin Feng frowned slightly. His original path was changed because of the movement of two dwarves. The gap in the middle was blocked, but the gaps on the left and right were revealed. Calculating the range of the dwarves' sensing ability, Lin Feng's body instantly changed, and he didn't slow down in the slightest. The wind vortex under his right foot lit up, and thousands of small holes absorbed the wind, strangely changing the direction of his movement. Xiao! Lin Feng's body was like a shooting star. Passing through the gap on the right, he was right in the middle of the two dwarves, easily avoiding them. But in an instant, not good, Lin Feng's eyes changed. In his senses, there was a black dwarf hiding under the stream, pretending to be a real one. Killing intent rose in his eyes. Lin Feng wasn't afraid of dwarves in the first place, but just as this thought appeared in his mind, he frowned. There are so many dwarves here. If I kill it, I'm afraid it will be very troublesome. Lin Feng muttered to himself. Killing would definitely cause a change in the airflow. In this densely populated area, if the first dwarf was attracted, the second dwarf would be attracted. If this matter was blown up, it would undoubtedly be very troublesome. I'll let you. Lin Feng's eyes turned cold. The radiance of the wind vortex appeared once more. The forward momentum was imbued, and his body's speed exploded once more. Whoosh! Light and shadow flashed. Lin Feng directly escaped with speed. There was no need to act rashly. His target was the red dwarf. Turning into a dazzling meteor, Lin Feng sped away at extreme speed. However, the dwarf's cry came from behind him, and in an instant, hundreds of people responded to his call. Lin Feng's expression changed. This is bad. These ordinary gnomes were more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. It was as though he possessed intelligence and knew how to gather his companions. Even though he could easily shake them off with his speed, the number of dwarves behind him would only increase and become denser. In this unfamiliar environment, if he walked into a dead end and had no way out, he would be in big trouble. No choice. Lin Feng's eyes turned cold. Be decisive, even though it would be troublesome to kill these gnomes now. But mending the pen after the sheep is lost is better than not mending at all. Flames of rebirth. Lin Feng's hands changed, and flames instantly appeared. The Yang Fate star plate shone brightly, causing the flames of rebirth to fluctuate violently. Facing the 12 gnomes who were attacking him, Lin Feng turned around. The powerful flames turned into a ball of light and instantly exploded like a meteorite. He had to deal with them cleanly. The faster he killed them, the smaller the fluctuations would be. Boom! The explosion was shocking. Lin Feng carefully controlled the flames of rebirth. He had to be careful in this area. The flames filled the sky, and its power spread in all directions. In an instant, the 12 gnomes turned into nothingness. The flames of rebirth was not something that could be resisted by the strength of a Star River realm. Wah! Lin Feng's figure teleported. Within the range of the flames, 12 water droplets quietly floated. Lin Feng stretched out his hand and swallowed them without hesitation. His eyes flashed with a strange radiance. Lin Feng immediately felt a powerful energy fluctuation in his body. His body was strengthened, and his cells were changing. The one who benefited the most was the water fate star plate. If the first water droplet was an appetizer, then now it was a main course. I can feel it. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. Sure enough, it was not a coincidence. His water fate star plate could indeed absorb the energy of these water droplets. Although it was just a drop in the ocean, a great building starts from the ground. Cultivation was not something that could be done overnight. It would slowly accumulate. His mind's eye spread out like a spiderweb again. Lin Feng immediately noticed the disturbance caused by the fluctuations. Countless gnomes were approaching him aggressively. Although the gnomes were small, their speed was not slow. Lin Feng's eyes lit up slightly. This time, there were more than 100 of them. I can't move. Lin Feng was very clear. The more he moved, the bigger the disturbance would be. Waiting for the gnomes was the best way. After all, every gnome had their own range of activity. If it was an ordinary galaxy-level martial artist, at this time, he should be running for his life, right? Lin Feng smiled. A faint red glow flickered around his body. The flame of rebirth lit up brightly. He was not afraid at all. These gnomes were not a threat to him at all. If one came, he would kill one. If two came, he would kill both. Half an hour later, it's over. Lin Feng stood calmly. More than 100 water droplets entered his stomach. Although it was not much, it was better than nothing. His mind's eye spread out like a spiderweb. Lin Feng quietly sensed his surroundings. At this time, there were no more gnomes attacking him. In other words, it's safe. Lin Feng nodded slightly. Looking up, the huge circular ring was hanging like the sun. Among the 12 grids, the spring water in the first 2 grids had already flowed out, which meant that 4 hours had passed. Lin Feng's eyes were clear. Without hesitation, his body shot out like an arrow piercing through the sky. Hurry up! After the first mistake, Lin Feng became even more cautious. No matter if it was above the spring or below the stream, he probed very carefully. As he went deeper and deeper, the number of gnomes increased exponentially. Every movement became more precise. This was the fine control of his movement technique. Half a second later, the white gnome will move, and 2 seconds later, there will be a gap between the 2 yellow gnomes behind it. The left side, now. Whoosh! Lin Feng was as fast as the wind. Controlling his own speed, he searched for the perfect direction to advance. He had to avoid all the gnomes as much as possible. Lin Feng calculated precisely. His mind was extremely focused. A huge chessboard appeared in his mind. The movement of every chess piece would affect the entire game. Lin Feng thought hard and observed the gnomes' movements. At first glance, there did not seem to be any pattern. But when he thought about it carefully, he could find some small clues. For example, the white gnomes liked to move to the left, while the black gnomes liked to dive into the water. As long as he grasped the pattern and was willing to use his brain, this test, it was not difficult. Time passed second by second. Lin Feng also slowly grasped the rules of the test here. Feeling around, trying, and steadily advancing, he searched for traces of the red gnome. Soon, after the 12 zodiac spring had emptied 6 squares, Lin Feng finally found the only red gnome. It was a huge spring lake. Countless streams converged, forming a terrain that looked like it was illuminated by sunlight. This place was not hard to find. As long as one followed any stream, they would be able to find this place and find the red gnome. But so many. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he pursed his lips. Using his mind's eye, he saw thousands of gnomes densely packed together, forming circles after circles of a maze, surrounding the red gnome in the center. This was the location of the final test. Kill the red gnome, and you'll complete the test. But first, you have to pass through the maze formed by thousands of gnomes, Lin Feng laughed. This test was indeed interesting. Step by step, it was like solving a chess game, from simple to complicated, and finally, super complicated. This maze definitely has a correct path and pattern, Lin Feng nodded. From the previous 12 hours, it could be seen that passing this test mainly depended on careful observation and calculation. Of course, one's own strength was also indispensable. 12 hours to find the correct path. It's not simple, Lin Feng thought to himself. The formation of this maze was no longer as small as it was earlier. There was only one chance. If a normal fighter failed to pass the maze, they would be surrounded and attacked by the gnomes. At that time, failing the test would be a small matter, but death, it would most likely descend. All the tests had only punishments. The Hundred Falls ancient ruins was one of the 4 great danger zones. Countless strong fighters had died there. How could there be no deaths? This is only a 9th grade spring waterfall. It seems to be the lowest grade. Lin Feng's eyes were clear, and he felt a little pressure in his heart. If he wanted to fulfill his 3 wishes, other than this gnome waterfall, he still needed to pass through the aging waterfall and the dead spirit waterfall. The difficulty would definitely be higher. Phew! Lin Feng sighed and leaped into the air. His eyes carried a faint light as he floated in the air. A red light flashed. At this moment, it was as if he had returned to the time when the beast horde was rioting to other fighters. These thousands of galaxy-level gnomes were hard to deal with. Once surrounded, not to mention a cosmic river rank, even an ordinary cosmic sea rank would not be able to survive. Because for every gnome killed, 2 more would be born. The more you kill, the more there would be. The more there were, the more dangerous it would be. But in a group battle, he was never afraid. That day, I even dared to fight against billions of beasts, let alone 10,000 gnomes. Lin Feng smiled. Spending 12 hours to think about how to pass through this maze and kill the red gnome without shedding a drop of blood? Indeed, this was the smartest method, but for him, it wasn't the best method. It differed from person to person. For the current him, there was no need to be so complicated. Fire of rebirth. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Floating in the air, with a disdainful gaze, the red flame ferociously lit up. A single flame was enough to burn everything down. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 355. Bang! Flames filled the sky. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The sun fate astrolabe shone brightly, and the flames of rebirth burned brightly. Go! Lin Feng shouted. On the spring lake, the flames of rebirth appeared like fire dragons, biting the densely packed dwarves. Everywhere it passed, everything turned into nothingness. The shrill cries of the dwarves kept ringing, hoarse and desperate. However, facing all this, Lin Feng's expression did not change at all. The strong preyed on the weak. This was how it was. If these dwarves did not die, the one who died would be him. In the middle of the spring lake, the red dwarf was screaming. It was filled with anger. The existence that was a head taller than the normal dwarves seemed to have a special power. The red light shone, and the red dwarf held a strange wooden staff in its hand. Its small eyes burned brightly, and it muttered something. Following the flickering of the wooden staff, countless dwarves appeared in front of the red dwarf, and a watery light gathered. Lin Feng was surprised. So, it is the origin of these dwarves. Seeing this scene, how could Lin Feng not understand? No wonder this test is for me to kill this red dwarf. Lin Feng instantly understood. The flames of rebirth in his hand did not stop, and they were boiling unrestrainedly. With a thought, the flames of rebirth violently poured out. Lin Feng's eyes were relaxed and natural. Although these dead dwarves could be revived several times, but obviously, they had to rely on the red dwarf. The speed of revival was limited. Wah! Lin Feng's figure moved. In the sea of flames, a gust of wind swept past, and tens of thousands of water droplets disappeared. Not bad. Lin Feng's eyes shone, and a faint red light flickered around his body. The flames of rebirth kept surging. Every dwarf that appeared was instantly killed and turned into water droplets of energy. At the same time, more water droplets of energy gathered on the red dwarf's wooden staff, and several dwarves appeared again. A cycle that was beneficial to Lin Feng. Devour, absorb. Lin Feng did not stop for even a moment as he continued to absorb the energy from the water droplets. Multitasking was too easy for him. Tens of thousands of water droplets entered his body, and the water fate astrolabe shone brightly. This time, it didn't look like he was throwing rice grains into the sea, but stones. The speed of absorption was extremely fast. Even if his body only absorbed a little bit of energy, the accumulation was still very impressive. How much can I absorb in 12 hours? Lin Feng was pleasantly surprised. It was much smoother than he had imagined. Time passed by second. In the first 2 hours, Lin Feng absorbed it quite easily. In the 4th hour, Lin Feng already felt a bit of pressure. At the 6th hour, a huge pressure fell on Lin Feng's shoulders. The dwarfs appeared faster and faster. The red dwarf's face emitted a holy light, and above the wooden staff, an astonishing amount of condensed light gathered. When more and more dwarves appeared and exceeded the capacity of the flames of rebirth, Lin Feng was in trouble. Oh no, if this goes on, the flames of rebirth might not be able to withstand it. Lin Feng felt powerless for the first time. If he killed 10,000 dwarfs, 20,000 would appear. If he killed 20,000, 40,000 would appear. Although there was a limit to the number of dwarfs that the flames of rebirth could kill at a time, it couldn't withstand the slow accumulation of more and more dwarfs. The speed of the dwarf's appearance was obviously not fixed, but changed according to the number of dwarfs that were resurrected. For example, if 100,000 dwarfs died, 10,000 would appear every second. But if 1,000,000 dwarfs died, 100,000 would appear every second. How could he withstand it? The fourth hour. Go! Lin Feng fled. There was no other way. The appearance of dwarfs far exceeded the capacity. It exceeded the limit. Even the tens of millions of water droplets on the spring lake could not be obtained. When these dwarfs swarmed over like locusts, Lin Feng could only run. His defense and attack were not on the same level at all. Not to mention tens of millions. Even 10,000 dwarfs would be able to tear him into pieces if they got close. The power of the flames of rebirth was indeed strong. Back then, Lin Feng faced tens of billions of beasts and won easily. But what was the strength of the beast horde? What was the strength of these dwarfs? Most importantly, the beast horde army that day had a large body size and occupied a large area. But now, these dwarfs were too small. When the densely packed existence exceeded the attack limit of the flames of rebirth, everything changed accordingly. The true advantage of numbers. From a head-on battle, it became a guerrilla battle. Lin Feng's face flashed with a hint of worry. The situation was not good for him. Although he was indeed faster than the dwarfs, guerrilla battle was a piece of cake. Every time the flames of rebirth spread, it would always bring the death of tens of thousands of dwarfs. However, there was no end to these pygmies, and their numbers were increasing by several folds. Kill 10,000, and it would increase by 20,000. Kill 100,000, and it would increase by 200,000. If this goes on, forget about killing the red dwarfs. I won't even be able to escape. Lin Feng felt a sense of danger. There were too many of them. As he retreated and controlled the flames of rebirth, Lin Feng thought of a solution. How can I turn this situation around? Lin Feng thought and frowned. Used to the control of the secret doppelganger, it was not difficult for Lin Feng to do a few things at the same time. Countless ideas appeared in his mind. Lin Feng filtered through them one by one and quickly made a final decision. Go back. Enter another spring stream. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. These dwarfs had followed him from the spring lake, so it was naturally impossible for him to forcefully break through and go back. But there was more than one way to enter the spring lake. He could enter anywhere, change the path, and kill my way back to the spring lake. Now, most of these dwarfs will be lured here by me, so the spring lake will be much more spacious. When that time comes, I can kill the red dwarfs in one go. Lin Feng's eyes brightened, and there was no more hesitation in his heart. This method was completely feasible. It's just a pity about those water droplets. Lin Feng sighed softly. If he went back, he would naturally not be able to obtain the spoils of war from the dwarfs he killed. Also, there are at least tens of millions of water droplets in the spring lake. Lin Feng clenched his teeth and felt that it was a pity. What a huge amount of profit. But he could only look on enviously, unable to do anything about it. Was there no other way? Was there really no other way? I can only sacrifice myself. Lin Feng felt helpless. No matter how attractive the water droplets were, it was not as important as his life. If he failed the test, the consequences would be severe. Become a dwarf? Lin Feng thought of the monsters he had just killed, and the corner of his mouth could not help but twitch slightly. If he became like that, it would be a fate worse than death. It's a pity if I could be like that heavenly dog and be able to use the heavenly dog swallows the sun. This thought suddenly appeared in his mind, and Lin Feng was suddenly stunned. His eyes flashed with an intense light, and his heart thumped violently. Wait, if the heavenly dog can do it, why can't I? Lin Feng only felt that his mouth was dry, and his body was a little hot. When he used the soul-devouring technique, he used his life spirit to carry out the most direct devouring, completely fusing with the heavenly dog's soul by force. All of its memories, including the talent heavenly dog swallows the sun, were under his control. To use the heavenly dog swallows the sun, He only needed to fulfill 3 conditions. Firstly, he already knew the method to use it. Secondly, with the unique soul, his life spirit should have the imprint of the heavenly dog, so there should be no problem. Thirdly, the world in his body. The heavenly dog had the flame world, and he also had the yang fate astrolabe, and it was even more vast and powerful. But he was still confused about the yang fate astrolabe. That place was like a wasteland that he had never entered, full of mystery. Last time, he had only entered tentatively and stopped after tasting it. But there was one thing he was sure of. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. In the yang fate astrolabe, there must be a world with a rebirth fire. Otherwise, how could he possess an endless supply of rebirth flames? Let's give it a try. Lin Feng couldn't stop jumping. That day when the heavenly dog used the heavenly dog swallows the sun, it could cross 3 levels. If he could use it, what kind of power would it be? It was unimaginable. Wah! Lin Feng quickly retreated. His eyes flashed with excitement. He instantly controlled the life spirit that had completely merged with the yang fate astrolabe. The secret technique of the heavenly dog swallows the sun appeared in Lin Feng's mind. It didn't take much effort to use it. It was an instinctive talent, just like the black fog of his mortal soul. He could use it at will. That is, Lin Feng's eyes widened. Through the life spirit, through the heavenly dog swallows the sun, he actually sensed the existence of chaos. It was an incomparably huge flame planet. The blazing light emitted extreme heat, and the rich aura of life energy was exactly the same as his rebirth fire. Where his heart was, it was extremely intimate. This is my flame world. Lin Feng's heart trembled. It was completely different from the little heavenly dog's flame world. There was a huge difference in level. Hua! Lin Feng stood still. Floating in the air, feeling the rich water elements, Lin Feng was very calm. The densely packed midgets were like ants at this moment. A strong surge of heaven and earth energy surged out. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, flashing with a strange expression. In an instant, the path to the flame planet was completely connected with the secret technique. The Phoenix Fate astrolabe flashed and lit up, as if the phoenix's cry was loud and clear. Heavenly Dog swallows the sun. An astonishingly powerful suction force appeared, like a huge black hole. Behind Lin Feng, a phoenix phantom appeared. The fiery red color was intense and dazzling, and the huge wings completely wrapped Lin Feng. At this moment, Lin Feng transformed into the phoenix emissary. His strength poured out in torrents. Boom! Hua! Hua! The strong air pressure, along with the power of flames, swept through the surrounding space. Millions of midgets screamed with all their might, their screams filled with sorrow and helplessness. But that power that was like the might of the heavens, at this moment, it completely exploded. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 356. The dwarf waterfall was quiet. The stream was still gurgling, and the clear sound of spring water resounded in his ears. Everything seemed to have returned to its most primitive state. As far as his eyes could see, all the dwarves had disappeared, and not a single one was left. Lin Feng opened his eyes, and the phoenix illusion behind him gradually faded away. However, the light in his eyes was still condensed, as bright as the stars. It was like the existence of the fire planet, blazing and powerful. What a terrifying power! Its devouring power is even stronger than the heavenly hounds. Lin Feng was shocked. At the moment when the heavenly hound swallows the sun was used, the fire planet in the Yang Fate star plate was incomparably clear. It was an existence that he could only look up to but was unable to reach. It contained an endless amount of flames. Millions of dwarves were devoured without any burden or pressure. If it was the Heavenly Hound's fire world, it would have collapsed long ago. Lin Feng thought. The Phoenix Fate star plate in his body was shining, and the fourth light spot, the water fate star plate, was resplendent. The yang fate star plate directly digested the energy of the water droplets, strengthening the water fate star plate. The two of them were originally one entity. Looking at the group of dwarves approaching him, Lin Feng raised the corner of his mouth, revealing an indifferent smile. With the talent, Heavenly Hound swallows the sun. What else did he have to fear? There's still more than 4 hours. Don't waste it. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. His figure flashed past, and instead of retreating, he advanced. There was no need to take a detour to avoid the endless number of dwarves. He only needed to devour and devour again, madly devouring, once again engaging in a battle of attrition. In this battle, Lin Feng had the absolute advantage. Ignoring the number of attacks, endless devouring, and the existence of the Yang Fate Star Plate made Lin Feng fearless. As expected, there is a limit to the multiplier. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. On the spring lake, the speed of the red dwarf reached its peak in the last 2 hours. However, it was unknown whether the strange wooden staff's endurance was limited or the red dwarf's strength was limited. It was unknown. However, this was not the key point. Under the continuous absorption of Tengu swallows the sun, the red dwarf's face was filled with exhaustion and weakness. Light gathered on the wooden staff in his hand, and dwarves appeared out of thin air. Every time, there would be tens of millions of them, filling up the entire lake. However, in an instant, it turned into nothingness. Heavenly Dog swallows the sun. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. It didn't take much effort to use it continuously. As long as the fire planet had enough capacity, the Heavenly Dog swallows the sun could be used indefinitely. Calm and unruffled, Lin Feng looked very relaxed. Staring at the red dwarf, Lin Feng stared at the wooden staff, a faint light flashing in his eyes. This wooden staff, I wonder if I could snatch it? Lin Feng's mind was suddenly filled with evil thoughts. With his current strength, there was no need for him to waste any effort to deal with the red dwarf. With just a thought, he could burn the red dwarf to ashes in an instant. At the top, the huge circular ring was still hanging. However, 11 of the grids had already run out of spring water, and the last one had less than 1/10 of the spring water left. I'll give it a try. Anyway, it's almost time. With a little bit of strength, he would be distracted. Lin Feng also became greedy, but there was no other way. Father is frozen, Dodo is sleeping. After entering the Doling world, I have to rely on myself. Lin Feng was very clear that he needed more chips to explore. Whoosh! He broke through the air, leaving behind a gust of wind. After devouring a group of tens of millions of midgets, Lin Feng did not waste any time and went straight for the red midget. He took advantage of the time difference. Not a second more, not a second less. His target was the red dwarf, the wooden staff in his hand. Rebirth flame. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In an instant, the red flame burned the red dwarf's hands. He controlled it according to his will, and the speed was extremely fast. At this moment, the red dwarf's small eyes lit up. Following an inexplicable chant, the wooden staff emitted a resplendent luster, and the water specks on top of it immediately gathered. Protect. Hua! The rebirth flame and the water specks collided. The consumption of energy. Lin Feng's eyes were deep, and his heart shuddered. Is indeed a treasure. Boom! The Yang Fate Star plate flickered, and Lin Feng released the rebirth flame. The red dwarf didn't show any signs of weakness. His face was tense, and sweat dripped from his forehead. It seemed to be struggling, but he still controlled the wooden staff, which flickered with light. The water specks and the rebirth flame desperately fought against each other. They were evenly matched. No, Lin Feng had the upper hand. But there was not much time left. Drip, drip. The sound of the spring water entered his ears, and the huge circle in front of him was vivid in his eyes. The scene of the last grid in Lin Feng's mind flashed, and he felt the spring water continuously flowing from the last 1/10 to 1/20th, and then to 1/60th, the last 100 seconds. Soon, just a little bit more, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He gritted his teeth and pushed the rebirth flame to the limit. He could clearly sense that the red dwarf was already powerless. It was weak and dispirited, like an arrow at the end of its flight. It couldn't hold on any longer. 60 seconds, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, the last 10 seconds. The familiar voice resounded in his mind. Lin Feng shook fiercely, and at this moment, the red dwarf's hand that was holding the wooden staff had gradually loosened. After fighting for a long time, finally, a crack appeared. Boom! Lin Feng's strength was earth-shattering, like a sharp awl drilling into the crack. It expanded greatly in the blink of an eye. Withdraw your hand, Lin Feng shouted coldly. The rebirth flame exploded, instantly shattering all of the wooden staff's defenses. The water specks completely dissipated. In this battle of endurance, Lin Feng had the last laugh. His right hand instantly grasped the gentle feeling, which brought along a mysterious power, and the sound of 5, 4, 3 rang in his ears. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth rose slightly. Die! The rebirth flame flared, turning the red dwarf into ashes. The mournful cries still reverberated in his ears, but the power had already disappeared. A resplendent white light shone in front of him, transforming into a bright brilliance. That intense dizziness attacked again. Lin Feng only felt that the sky and earth were spinning, and in an instant, swish, his body fell, and Lin Feng opened his eyes. What he saw in front of him was a familiar scene, filled with dense spiritual energy. He had returned. After successfully passing the first test, the entrance to the dwarf waterfall had already disappeared. The remaining red, aging waterfall and the orange undead waterfall appeared demonic and mysterious, emitting a much stronger energy than the dwarf waterfall, extremely tempting. The difficulty was even greater, but the more danger there was, the more reward there was. Lin Feng looked at the wooden staff tightly grasped in his right hand, and the corner of his mouth rose into a faint smile. In the end, he had succeeded. What a strange wooden staff. Lin Feng held it tightly. It was extremely sturdy. He couldn't destroy it with his strength, but he didn't know what special material was used to make it. The wooden staff was 1 meter long, narrow at the bottom and wide at the top. It had a mysterious pattern, which gave off a feeling of power. Holding it in his hand, it was very comfortable and soft, as if he was immersed in spring water. I wonder what it could be used for. Lin Feng nodded lightly, but when he looked around, he couldn't find anything. He frowned slightly and suddenly remembered the scene of the battle with the red dwarf, and he suddenly understood. Every time this wooden staff displayed its power, it needed to be combined with something else, secret technique. Let's put it away first. Lin Feng thought. He wasn't in a hurry. The purple ring flashed, and Lin Feng immediately put away the wooden staff. Looking at the 2 flickering balls in front of him, he was calm. There were still 2 more tests. 2 tests with no way out. With that thought, Lin Feng let out a long breath and looked at the red balls about to enter. Suddenly, his footsteps stopped, and Lin Feng was slightly startled. There was a time limit for the mission in the dwarf waterfall, but there isn't one here. Lin Feng's face lit up, and he smiled slightly. Since that was the case, why should he be in a hurry and take such a big risk? After going through the dwarf waterfall, Lin Feng had some understanding of the 100 waterfall ancient ruins. 1 test, 1 mission. In here, the danger was great, but the rewards were also very good. The premise was that he had to be strong enough. If an ordinary martial artist were to enter the dwarf waterfall, it would be considered pretty good if they could find a way to kill the red dwarf within a short span of 24 hours. However, he had a great harvest, not to mention the strange wooden staff he obtained in the end. Just the droplet of energy alone was enough to fill him with food. Closing his eyes, Lin Feng sat cross-legged on the ground and carefully sensed the phoenix natal chart. After a long time, the water fate astrolabe is about 1/10,000 full. Lin Feng opened his eyes, feeling very satisfied. According to Duo, If he cultivated normally, it would take a long time for him to gather enough energy to light up the water fate astrolabe. But now, in just 24 hours, he had reached 1/10,000th, far exceeding his expectations. This water droplet energy was very precious. That's true. After all, it absorbed hundreds of millions of water droplets. Lin Feng smiled. It should be known that those dwarfs were star river level existences, and hundreds of millions of water droplets energy was only 1/10,000th full. One could imagine how difficult it was to light up the water fate astrolabe. No wonder Duo wanted me to kill the divine beast directly, Lin Feng said, but he shook his head. Maybe it was possible before, but now, without Duo's help, he couldn't even touch the divine beast's tail. Challenging a divine beast with star river level strength was simply a joke. It would be great if I could stay in the dwarf waterfall forever, Lin Feng said softly. In just 24 hours, no, to be exact, in the last few hours, the water fate astrolabe was already 1/10,000th full. If only he had more time, there would be hope if he could light up the water fate astrolabe. But it was just an extravagant hope. Phew. Lin Feng let out a long sigh and returned to his normal state of mind. Fight steadily and surely. There is no need to force it. The most important thing now is to complete the remaining 2 tests. Next, Lin Feng nodded. Just as he was thinking, he suddenly thought of something and reached out with his right hand. There was an envelope in his hand, which was given to him by his brother before he left. Looking at the majestic and domineering handwriting, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Father's letter. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 357. Father. Lin Feng pursed his lips. In order to help him, his father dragged his heavily injured body and forcefully urged his strength. Even if he had to give up his life, he wouldn't hesitate. Looking at the familiar handwriting, Lin Feng felt tears welling up in his eyes. His right hand that was holding the envelope tightened, causing the envelope to crumple a little. The most painful thing in life was the death of one's parents, but one still had a chance. 10,000 years. Lin Feng murmured softly. To him, this was a very long time. But after stepping into the Star River level, cultivation will slow down. Lin Feng's eyes turned cold as he recalled what Toto had told him. 1 month to reach the Star River level. 1 year to reach the Star Sea level. 100 years to reach the Star Lord level. 10,000 years to reach the Star Domain level. It would take 10,000 years to reach the Star Domain level. And this was with Toto's help and using all the resources on the Netherworld ship. He didn't even have a clue on how to break through to the Star Sea level, especially the Phoenix natal plate. If he couldn't light up the metal, wood, earth, and water natal plates, he wouldn't be able to advance. Staying at the Star River level, it would be difficult to advance. Sighing, Lin Feng shook his head. Right now, he could only take 1 step at a time. No matter what, he had to read the contents of the letter first. Opening the envelope, the vigorous and powerful handwriting was like a soaring dragon. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he said softly, Feng, pass through the 100 Falls and enter the southern Vermilion Bird Continent, an extremely hot place in the Doling world. Go to Shirluo County and seek refuge with your uncle Lin Jing. Show him this letter. Remember, he is the only one you can trust. It was short and neat. Looking at his father's signature and a strange circular pattern at the bottom of the letter, Lin Feng murmured softly, Father. Until the end, his father had always been thinking for him. He didn't mention a word about his enemy. Even if this blood feud would be buried with his death, it didn't matter. This was a father's love, silently giving without asking for anything in return. There was no sadness in the letter. There was only an arrangement for him. To warn him. Southern Vermilion Bird Continent, Shirluo County. Uncle, Lin Jing. Lin Feng read it again, carefully, and committed it to memory. Although his father didn't say it clearly in the letter, the last sentence, however, there was a deeper meaning behind it. The Lin clan doesn't seem to be what I imagined it to be. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. Father was heavily injured and almost died, but he did not return to the Lin clan. Instead, he came to the Tianwu continent. Is there a reason? After experiencing the ups and downs of the Sky Martial continent, Lin Feng had matured. Although his father did not say it clearly, he could vaguely feel it. However, it's still too early to think about this. Lin Feng folded the letter and put it back into the envelope. He sighed slightly, feeling helpless. If he had seen this letter earlier, he would have been able to choose to enter Shirluo Commandery. Now, he didn't even know where the random teleportation would send him. According to what he knew, the Douling world was unimaginably huge. It would be very troublesome. Since I'm here, I'll just take it as it comes. Lin Feng was also optimistic. There was no need to regret what had happened. No one could predict whether it was a blessing or a curse. Instead of worrying about the unknown future, it was better to grasp the present. Cultivate. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He was not in a hurry to enter the small red ball, aging waterfall. Since there was no time limit, he would wait until he had enough confidence to enter. Not only would the risk be reduced, but the benefits would also be greatly increased, just like in Dwarf Waterfall. With danger, there was opportunity. He had officially settled down. Lin Feng was no longer in a hurry. The matters of the Tianwu continent had been settled. He no longer needed to race against time like before. In this place where the spirit qi was abundant, he could be undistracted. He calmed his heart and cultivated. 10,000 years was still a long time. Secret clone. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His body suddenly became illusory, and a bright light appeared. In an instant, two Lin Feng appeared. It was as if his body had been cut into two parts. Unlike before, this time, the mutated heart of origin, which was the phoenix natal plate, was inside the secret clone. It should be because the life spirit has fused with the sun fate astrolabe. Lin Feng nodded. It was just a slight difference. There was no big difference. The secret doppelganger was actually another main body. It could cultivate, but at the same time, it could also be injured. That day, the puppet black skeleton sacrificed its secret clone to kill the celestial hound, causing its life spirit to fall into a deep sleep. As the life spirit recovered, the star vault eyes fell into a deep sleep again. Lin Feng shook his head helplessly. Although he had two life spirits, they were taking turns to recover. Without the Netherworld ship, the recovery of the star vault eyes would take a long time. However, compared to the damage his life spirit had suffered, the star vault eyes was undoubtedly much lighter. His life spirit was heavily injured, while the star vault eyes was exhausted due to excessive consumption. Moreover, in terms of grade, the star vault eyes was much stronger. I'll cultivate while waiting for the star vault eyes to recover. At that time, with two life spirits in the star vault eyes, my strength will be even stronger. As he pondered, Lin Feng controlled his body to cultivate the book of Emperor Shun. The first layer, the sixth layer, the qi of heaven and earth surged crazily, condensing to the size of his calves. In this place, with abundant spiritual qi, the cultivation speed of the war god was much faster than in the Tianwu continent. It was more than 10 times faster. Every 3 layers is a step. When I reach the 7th layer, my cultivation speed will greatly increase. Condensing the qi of heaven and earth will be faster, and the conversion of earth energy will be more concise. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he clenched his fists. His first goal was to comprehend the first layer, the 7th layer of the book of Emperor Shun. Compared to the 6th layer, the 7th layer was not only faster, but its power was also greatly increased. The cultivation of the main body and the comprehension of the secret clone were seamless. The most efficient use. That day on the Netherworld ship, time was tight. But now there was plenty of time. Lin Feng was not in a hurry. Time passed day by day. In this place that was like a secret garden, he did not know how long he had been cultivating. In fact, once he was immersed in cultivation, time would pass very quickly. It was exactly the same as concentrating on one thing. Unknowingly, a month had passed. Oh, I understand now. Haha, so that's how it is. Lin Feng suddenly laughed loudly. After pondering for a whole month, he seemed to have gone mad. Finally, he had solved the mystery of the seventh layer. A huge amount of qi of heaven and earth suddenly descended. It was quite dense. Lin Feng closed his eyes and unskillfully activated the first layer, the seventh layer of the Book of Emperor Shun. In a short while, he had mastered it. Unfamiliar at first, but familiar at second. The dense earth energy was disintegrated extremely quickly. The powerful qi of heaven and earth surged and quickly dispersed around his body. It tempered the skin and changed the cells. At the same time, it strengthened the human soul. To comprehend the eighth layer is not something that can be done overnight. There's no need for that. Lin Feng calculated the gains and losses. The eighth layer was much harder than the seventh layer. He would need at least a few months to comprehend it, but his strength would not increase by much. From a seventh layer to the ninth layer, it was like a small step. It was not as big as the change from the sixth layer to the seventh layer. As for stepping from a ninth layer to the 10th layer, Lin Feng did not even think about it. Even his teacher, Bai Li Feng, who was a genius, could not comprehend the 10th layer, let alone him. Star Sky Eyes has not awakened yet. Maybe I should cultivate the devouring fire first? Lin Feng immediately did as he thought. A light flickered in his hand, and a small Tianya crystal appeared in his hand. Without the protection of the nether ship, these Tianya crystals that he casually picked up that day became the most expensive thing. In fact, in the Doling world, 7-star crystals were originally priceless. That day, just a little bit of powder was enough to make those warriors in the Alcade Palace turn pale with fright. One could imagine, but to the current him, it was not very useful. Lin Feng clearly understood the logic of treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. According to Duo, these Tianya crystals were enough to move the star domain level existences. Even if he went to the Doling world in the future, would he be able to take out these things? He would die if he saw the light. The one who would die would be him. Why don't I just use it as food for the devouring fire? Lin Feng shrugged his shoulders. There was nothing to be reluctant about. The key was whether it was suitable or not. As a 7-star crystal, the Tianya crystals must have an extremely strong energy. Let's give it a try. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Just as he was about to control the devouring fire, suddenly, Lin Feng was stunned. In his senses, there was no trace of the devouring fire. It was as if it had disappeared. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. He closed his eyes and focused his mind. He immediately realized that his phoenix natal chart was very strange. The 2 eyes on the phoenix head were still bright, but the third light spot, the fire natal chart, was dim. It was exactly the same as the other light spots, as if it had never been lit. What was going on? Lin Feng was stunned and puzzled. Frowning slightly, Lin Feng bit his lips. Suddenly, merge! The secret doppelganger returned to the main body, and the phoenix natal chart also returned. This time, the devouring fire in his hand shone brightly. Lin Feng seemed to understand something. His expression changed instantly. Hua, separate, Shua. They merged into one. He continued to separate and merge several times, continuously experimenting. I see. Lin Feng suddenly smiled. The phoenix head is still bright. There is no problem with the phoenix natal chart. The key is in the soul. My human soul controls the devouring fire, and my life spirit, after merging with the yang natal chart, controls the rebirth fire. Lin Feng nodded with a smile. No wonder I can control 2 flames with opposite energies at the same time like the phoenix. Lin Feng instantly understood. The cultivation of a martial god uses the heart of origins as the foundation to absorb the origin energy of heaven and earth to increase one's strength. To me, it is actually to strengthen the devouring fire. As for the cultivation of a celestial spirit master, Lin Feng was a little troubled. He did not know how to improve the rebirth fire. Suddenly, clap! Lin Feng clapped his hands. Right. The last time he entered the yang natal chart, that unique and magical world. There must be an answer there. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 358. Young Fate Astrolabe. Lin Feng closed his eyes. Sensing the phoenix Fate Astrolabe in his body, his eyes lit up. In an instant, his head shook. Lin Feng was immersed in it, and his eyes were dazzling. The familiar feeling came again. I'm here. Lin Feng smiled. It was his second entry. Clouds spread out, and the colors were bright. It was like a fairyland with rainbows, and it was full of extreme beauty. Stepping on the clouds was like stepping on flat ground. Lin Feng's eyes were shining. Feeling the rich spiritual energy in this place, his mind was in a trance. What a familiar feeling. Lin Feng closed his eyes and took a deep breath. That feeling was like returning to his home. Last time, he came in a hurry and left in a hurry, so he didn't carefully explore this mysterious world. Now, he had enough time to slowly search and discover. Lin Feng opened his eyes and felt a refreshing feeling from the heart. He immediately sped up. It's so quiet, Lin Feng said softly. There was no sound. There seemed to be no other living creatures in this fairyland-like existence. Only the clouds under his feet were big and small, and they had all kinds of shapes. It was very interesting, but Lin Feng knew that wasn't the case. Last time, I heard the long cry of the phoenix. Lin Feng remembered it clearly. That howling voice was filled with extreme arrogance. It was high and mighty, and its strength was far from what he could fathom. Muttering in his heart, Lin Feng didn't care. With a trace of caution, he instantly expanded his mind's eye to explore everything around him. No matter what, it was better to be careful. It's so big. After running for a full 2 hours, Lin Feng stopped in the air, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. It was as if he was spinning in place, and he had completely lost his direction. The fairyland-like existence's scenery was as beautiful as a painting, but no matter how beautiful the scenery was, if one kept staring at it and staying in it, they would gradually become familiar and accustomed to it. And now, the most important thing was, he was completely lost. It's not a maze illusion. Lin Feng nodded. He knew very well that even though the scenery was similar, there was still a slight difference. All kinds of flowers and plants were also lives. Their eyes looked the same, but the feeling of the heart's eye was completely different. If he was trapped in a maze, he would not have such a feeling. The only explanation was, it was too big. The size of this place was unimaginably large. With his current speed, if he ran at full speed for 2 hours, he would be able to circle half of the Sky Marshall continent. But here, that's true. The Do Spirit world is so big. How can I imagine it? Lin Feng muttered softly. Keep searching. I don't believe that there is nothing special about this place. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He had always been stubborn and refused to admit defeat. Moreover, Lin Feng knew very well that this was definitely a treasure trove. However, it was just that he hadn't discovered it yet. 4 hours later. 6 hours. Time passed slowly. Lin Feng didn't give up and continued to search. Until the 18th hour, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. In his heart's eye for the first time, he truly felt different. It was a completely sealed existence. A very strong feeling of power, causing one's heart to palpitate. I wonder what it is. Lin Feng was instantly excited. After searching for a full 16 hours, that feeling was as though he had spent all his effort to find something that he could not find. Finally, he found it. What was it? Hua! Lin Feng's figure stopped. His mouth was wide open, his gaze focused. Lin Feng could not help but take a deep breath. It was a super huge fire cave. It was deep and huge. The fire cave was so big that it was boundless. It was so powerful that it covered the sky and earth, causing people to be startled from the bottom of their hearts. Lin Feng looked at the blazing flames that were filled with extreme light. His eyes revealed extreme shock. Oh my God, what is this thing? He was extremely shocked. Lin Feng never thought that this sealed, strong existence would be such a strange thing. Indeed, it was very strange. It was far beyond his expectations. This super huge fire cave was emitting light. The terrifying power seemed to be contained and sealed. But even so, he could feel the enormous heavenly might. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He immediately thought of the universe experts on the Netherworld ship. No, it was stronger than them. He was very careful. He had to be careful. Facing this Pang Ran, Lin Feng did not dare to be careless. Floating in the air, he circled this super huge fire cave again and again. With his speed, it took him a whole incense stick's worth of time to complete one circle. How shocking. It's even bigger than Heaven-Breaking City. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His intuition told him that this should be an opportunity. But he was not confident at all. He knew nothing about this super huge fire cave. Who the hell knew what was inside? What if it was filled with a terrifying power that he could not resist? Wouldn't he be courting death? It should be fine, right? Lin Feng frowned slightly. In his bones, Lin Feng was still a bit adventurous and impulsive. But after experiencing the ups and downs of the Tianmu continent, he had matured a lot. Lin Feng's eyes changed. He sensed the powerful aura, but there was no hostility. The scale in his heart was tilted. Since it existed in the Yang Fate astrolabe, there must be a reason. No matter what, it shouldn't be too dangerous, right? Phew. Lin Feng let out a long breath and forced himself to calm down. He had to think thrice before he acted, but he did not seem to have much choice. Let's go in. Lin Feng clenched his teeth. Without entering the tiger's den, how could he get the tiger cub? His right hand gently pressed on his chest. Feeling his heartbeat, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Believe in your heart. Intuition. At this moment, Aoo, a loud and clear cry, suddenly rang out. That was a familiar sound. Lin Feng's eyes revealed incomparable surprise. Feeling that aura, the image of a phoenix spreading its wings appeared in his memory. The power of flames spontaneously arose. Long cries rose and fell one after another. Echoes rang out in his ears, still echoing. It's coming. Lin Feng was incomparably shocked. Using his mind's eye, he sensed that it was an extremely powerful force, an unparalleled force. It was approaching him. Its speed could be said to be terrifying. In an instant, it had descended. Lin Feng sucked in a breath of cold air and raised his head. In the sky, a red light enveloped the sky. The bright red color was filled with the light of flames, as if it was completely formed by flames. Its huge wings covered the entire sky. The phoenix's sonorous cry rang out. Its slender neck raised its head high, and its eyes were filled with light. This is a phoenix? Lin Feng felt a deep sense of insignificance. In front of it, he was like a grain of sand in the sea. For the first time, he saw a real phoenix. Looking at it from a close distance, the true body of this flame-divine beast was powerful enough to destroy everything. Its clear eyes glanced at him. Lin Feng felt his heart tremble. As long as it wanted to, he would have no room to resist at all. Too powerful. For pairs of eyes met. Lin Feng did not avert his gaze. He could completely feel the indifference in this phoenix's eyes, but there was no killing intent. In an instant, the phoenix opened its mouth and uttered a strange sound, as if it was some kind of language. However, Lin Feng could not understand it all. This phoenix in front of him, what did it want to say to him? Lin Feng shook his head with a puzzled expression. Wah! A ray of colorful light burst out. The huge phoenix seemed to have turned into flames. The thick flames were wrapped in a layer of faint light. Lin Feng's eyes turned pale with fright. He saw a woman wearing fiery red-scaled armor slowly walking out from the flames. Arrogant, beautiful, the phoenix crown on her head completely reflected her nobility. Her beauty was peerless. This was a kind of temperament that she was born with. Her exquisite and graceful body formed a perfect curve. Her proud figure, coupled with her beautiful face, formed the most beautiful picture in the world. It was so beautiful that one did not dare to look directly at it. Lin Feng was completely shocked. This was the second time he saw a completely transformed magical beast after the little heavenly dog. No, it was a divine beast. Different from the little heavenly dog's transformation, the phoenix in front of him did not give off the aura of a beast. It was as if she was a human. There was no difference at all, including, "Are you going in?" The voice was like the sound of nature, leisurely sounding. Lin Feng was still a little confused. He suddenly realized that the phoenix was speaking the language of the Douling world. Lin Feng opened his mouth, but did not know what to say. Seeing that Lin Feng did not respond, the phoenix glanced at him indifferently and did not say anything. Her body instantly turned into a red light and entered the super fire cave in the blink of an eye. She came like a shadow and left like the wind. Lin Feng was shocked. In an instant, he had already lost sight of the beautiful woman. Only the faint fragrance lingered with the wind. I went in just like that. Lin Feng came back to his senses and blinked. There was no fluctuation, nor was there any earth shaking. It was just very plain. She pushed open the door of her home and stepped in just like that. As expected, I'm not the only one who can enter here. She should be a top expert of the Douling world, right? According to Duo, when a phoenix grows to its peak, it will be a saint-level existence. And when it lights up one of the destined star plates, it will be a Saint King-level existence. In other words, she's a Saint King-level expert. Lin Feng only felt a huge shock in his heart. He did not expect that he would meet a Saint King-level expert here. That was a transcendent existence that was only one step away from becoming a starry sky expert. The true king of the Douling world. Lin Feng took a deep breath. Instantly, a bitter expression appeared on his face. He remembered that she was talking to him just now, but he ignored her? Since she can enter, then I should be able to as well, right? Lin Feng looked at the super fire cave and could not help but feel moved. His eyes flashed with a bright light. His interest in the super fire cave had multiplied. Even a Saint King-level existence could enter. There must be a great mystery in it. Let's go in and take a look. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The hesitation in his heart immediately disappeared. Lin Feng took a deep breath, and his body shot forward like a sharp arrow. In an instant, speeding towards the super fire cave. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 359. However, the result was unexpected. Bang! Lin Feng was bounced back by a soft force. That feeling was like entering a saturated room that could no longer hold a person. Lin Feng looked at the super fire cave in front of him in a daze. In his mind, the only sentence that the Phoenix Beauty said to him just now appeared. Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. He suddenly clapped his hands and suddenly understood. However, his face turned bitter. It can't be such a big place and only one person can enter? Lin Feng completely understood. However, he could only sigh helplessly. He seemed to have missed an opportunity. However, it's not like I didn't gain anything. Lin Feng smiled. At least he met at the divine beast Phoenix, and it was a transcendent being of the Sage King level. This super fire cave can only hold one person, and this independent space can be entered by opening the Fate Star plate. In other words, there must be other super fire caves. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he nodded. Without hesitation, Lin Feng turned into a stream of wind and instantly sped away. With a goal, he naturally wouldn't hesitate. This time, after only 12 hours, Lin Feng found the second super fire cave. The blazing flames were like a boiling fireball. However, it was suppressed by a mysterious force, like a fierce tiger locked in a cage. Lin Feng walked around and couldn't help but exclaim softly, "This is much smaller than the first fire cave." It was only a quarter of the size. However, in fact, it was big enough. At least, he couldn't see the end of it. This one, Lin Feng didn't hesitate. Anyway, he knew nothing about each super fire cave. Might as well just try his luck. However, the result was still bang. He was blocked again. Lin Feng felt very helpless. He clearly knew the entrance, but he couldn't enter. Why don't we wait here for a while? Just as this thought surfaced in his mind, Lin Feng instantly rejected it. However, he did not know how long he would have to wait. Instead of wasting time, it was better to continue searching. Lin Feng nodded. I don't believe that every super fire cave has someone. Breaking through the air, Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. A little setback was nothing. Continue searching. Time passed slowly. Lin Feng was not in a hurry to cultivate the strategy of Emperor Shun in the 100 Waterfalls. The cultivation of the celestial spiritual master, which was the cultivation of the fire of rebirth, had to be solved. Otherwise, it was difficult for him to improve his strength. A full 3 days. Lin Feng found 4 super fiery caves, but each of them had a full sign hanging on it. I don't believe it. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with stubbornness. Since he could enter the super fire cave he had seen the first time, there would naturally be a second and a third. However, this still depended on luck. However, believing in luck was too vague. If 4 is enough, I'll find 10. If 10 isn't enough, I'll find 100. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. To him, time was not a problem. Another day passed in a hurry. Found it. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows. His mind's eye once again sensed the existence of the super fire cave. My luck is good this time. Only 8 hours have passed. Lin Feng felt happy. His intuition told him this seemed to be a good omen. Soon, Lin Feng found the super fire cave. However, it seemed to be different from before. This fire cave was surrounded by a layer of light. Lin Feng made a sound of surprise. The energy of the light wall was very strong. It felt familiar, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Who cares? Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He didn't care. After all, he didn't refuse anyone. As long as he could enter, he didn't care what type of super fire cave it was. Let's go in first. Xiao. He dashed in, but this time, boom. A violent sound rang out. Lin Feng felt dizzy. Compared to the soft wall, just now, this time, he had completely hit a wall. A very thick wall. Depressing. Lin Feng shook his head. He felt slightly dizzy. He stood up and looked at the shining light wall. Lin Feng touched it lightly with his palm. His eyes immediately lit up. It was very tough. Different from the super fire cave, which was as thin as paper. This light wall was a genuine defensive force. Instantly, Lin Feng clapped his hands and remembered. Spatial barrier. This light wall in front of him was very similar to the spatial barrier of the heavenly treasures world. I need to use force to break it. Lin Feng frowned. With a thought, the flame of rebirth appeared in his hand. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a huge fireball. The bright light was filled with great power. Go! Lin Feng's eyes focused. In a split second, the fireball fell like a meteor. A violent force was released. In the dwarf waterfall, the flame of rebirth was invincible. But here it was defeated. It did not move at all. The light wall outside the super fire cave had a faint luster. It was not affected at all. Lin Feng's eyes were clear. His expression was solemn. He had already prepared himself. With his strength, it was hard to find a match in the sky martial continent. But in the 100 Waterfalls, he already felt the pressure. And in this world where the Saint King Phoenix appeared, it was not worth mentioning. Let's try again. Lin Feng's eyes were deep. He was not willing to admit defeat. The flame of rebirth gathered again. Suddenly, this is useless. A voice came from behind, giving Lin Feng a fright. With his strength, he was completely unable to sense his existence. It was like a ghost. If it was an enemy, Lin Feng immediately turned his head. His eyes flashed. It was a man with his hands behind his back and a smile on his face. He wore a loose, long robe. The man had short hair and a faint light in his eyes. Looking at him, it was as if he could see through everything. To enter the bright Phoenix realm, the flame of rebirth or the flame of devouring must reach the 80th level. The long-robed man smiled. 80th level. Lin Feng was stunned. His flame of devouring had only reached the 30th level. As for the flame of rebirth, although he did not know how many levels it was obviously not just a little bit away from the 80th level. "Hello, Senior," Lin Feng said politely. With the long-robed man's strength, it was obvious that one of the two flames had reached the 80th level. Otherwise, why would he appear here? That was the 80th level. According to his father, if the flame of devouring could reach the 80th level, he could do whatever he wanted in the Douling world. "Hello, little brother." The long-robed man smiled indifferently. He was still very polite. Just like how Lin Feng guessed his origin, how could he not be the same? "Little brother, you don't look familiar. May I know which clan you are from?" The long-robed man's eyes flickered. To be able to activate the Astral at such a young age, such talent is quite rare in the human race. TSK, how impressive. Human race? The long-robed man in front of him was not the divine beast Phoenix. For a moment, Lin Feng was a little confused. Other than him, there was another human who could integrate with the Phoenix blood and mutate the Phoenix natal chart. The Douling world is indeed very big. Lin Feng was a little surprised. It was much more complicated than he had imagined. "I am a free person and do not belong to any clan," Lin Feng said without hiding anything. For the time being, he did not belong to the Lin clan. His father had never mentioned it before. It was better to be honest with this powerful expert in front of him. "Oh," the long-robed man was surprised. The long-robed man narrowed his eyes as he looked at Lin Feng. His eyes were filled with suspicion. However, Lin Feng stood straight and looked at the long-robed man without fear. Although his eyes were not as bright as the long-robed man's, they were full of righteousness. His words were true, so there was no need for him to hide. "Ha!" The long-robed man smiled and did not say anything else. A red jade in the shape of a flame appeared in his hand. With a shake of his hand, the red jade flew to Lin Feng. Lin Feng took it and felt a burning sensation. It was like a red-hot soldering iron. Lin Feng was shocked. He looked at the red jade and saw a soaring phoenix imprinted on it. It was covered in dense flames and was about to soar into the sky. "This is..." Lin Feng looked at the long-robed man in surprise. "The ancient Wu Feng clan." The long-robed man smiled. "Little brother, if you are a free person, you can consider it." As soon as he finished speaking, the long-robed man did not wait for Lin Feng's reply and walked forward. In that instant, an extremely terrifying flame soared into the sky. Lin Feng felt an extreme heat, and a shocking red light flashed in front of his eyes like lightning. With a loud rumble, the wall of light disappeared. Feeling the shocking power of the long-robed man, Lin Feng felt his heartbeat quicken, and the hand holding the red jade couldn't help but tremble slightly. This was a real flame. The strength to look down on the entire Douling world. "Right." The long-robed man's voice sounded again. Lin Feng turned his head, and a strange stone suddenly appeared in front of him. Lin Feng reached out and took it. "Memory stone, crush it." The long-robed man smiled indifferently. "With your current strength, it's better for you to go to the Polar Phoenix realm." With that, he looked deeply at Lin Feng and nodded. "See you later, little brother." The voice was still lingering in his ears. Lin Feng was still savoring these words when the long-robed man had already disappeared. Looking at the empty area, Lin Feng found it hard to calm down. Too shocking. Ancient Wu Feng clan. Looking at the flame-shaped red jade in his hand and feeling the power within it, Lin Feng felt his hair stand on end when he thought of the long-robed man's strange and unfathomable strength. He never thought that in just a few days he would come into contact with two different types of super experts. Huff! Exhaling deeply, Lin Feng's eyes were bright and full of spirit. To him, the harvest this time was truly great. "One day, I will also become that supreme existence." Clenching his fists, Lin Feng pursed his lips and nodded. Looking at the memory stone in his hand, he exerted a little force with his right hand, and in that instant, with a flash of white light, Lin Feng disappeared. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 360. Wah! Lin Feng's figure flashed. This place is... Lin Feng stared at the ground below, feeling astonished. He was in the air, and the memory stone had brought him to this area. Looking down, it was an incomparably huge super fire cave. The vigorous flames burned, and the boiling aura was filled with extreme pressure. Although the astonishing aura was concealed, it was still shocking. It's even bigger than the first super fire cave. Is this the extreme road Phoenix realm that the senior of the Wu Feng clan spoke of? There's no wall of light blocking me. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. He didn't stop for a moment and quickly rushed down. Glancing around, Lin Feng let out a soft... His figure paused for a moment and suddenly saw that around the super fire cave, there were many small fire caves. With that thought in mind, Lin Feng could not help but feel curious. Since I'm already here, there's no rush. Let's investigate carefully first. Lin Feng thought to himself, this extreme road Phoenix realm seemed to be very mysterious. Lin Feng didn't slow down at all. His body circled around the super fire cave as he sped forward. The wind and the crane were alarmed. Lin Feng's eyes were shining as he carefully observed. Sure enough, he was not mistaken. Outside this super fire hole, there were many small fire holes attached to it, and there were quite a lot of them. Very quickly, Lin Feng circled around. However, the time was much more than he had imagined. A full 2 hours. It's really big. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he sighed. With his speed, he had circled the first super fire cave in less than an incense stick's worth of time. And now, comparing the two, the difference was obvious. This super fire cave is several times bigger than the Sky Marshall continent. There are 9 small fire caves around it. Adding the largest super fire cave, there's a total of 100 fire caves. Lin Feng muttered, as if he had understood something. At this moment, there was a strange energy fluctuation, and the space seemed to split apart. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly as he suddenly realized something. Someone's coming. At that moment, he no longer hesitated. How could he care about anything else? His body transformed into a sharp arrow and pierced through the super fire hole at the center. Hua! A streak of fiery red instantly engulfed Lin Feng. It was as if he was trapped in an endless void. There was chaos in front of him, and the endless starry sky decorated the horizon. They were densely packed like a starlight compass. There were countless of them. This is the Polar Road Phoenix realm? Lin Feng's consciousness gradually became clear, and just as this thought appeared in his mind, suddenly, boom! Intense rays of light dazzled. A bright, fiery red light suddenly appeared in the sky, and the 7-colored light reflected the chaos. Lin Feng opened his eyes wide and suddenly looked at an inconceivably huge phoenix. Its extremely beautiful wings covered its entire body, and its cries shook. Around its body, 2 separate flames intertwined and burned, and it was extremely brilliant. Devouring fire, rebirth fire. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Heavens, they can actually combine so perfectly. Lin Feng was shocked. From what he could see, the devouring fire and rebirth fire were like twin brothers without any gap, as if they were originally one. But they were 2 separate types of energy. Can I do this too? Lin Feng's heart trembled. Lin Feng frowned as he simulated the scene in his mind. It was very difficult. Nay, a clear and melodious cry rang out. The scene before Lin Feng's eyes changed again, and the extreme flames that filled the sky surrounded him. In the endless void, the phoenix gradually pulled away, and its essence entered his heart, turning into 7 spots of light. It seemed to have the same effect as his phoenix natal chart. Pursing his lips, Lin Feng's eyes were extremely bright. In an instant, the 7 spots of light became hazy and illusory, and the scene was pulled closer again. Countless small dots appeared in front of Lin Feng, and as he got closer and closer, it was as if distant objects were slowly appearing. These small dots became bigger and bigger, expanding like balloons, and the area was so huge that it was dazzling. Lin Feng was in a daze, and his heart suddenly trembled violently. A very familiar feeling appeared in front of him. It was a huge, burning ball of fire, and it felt extremely small in this endless starry sky. Compared to those balls, it was like a speck of dust. But it's my flame world. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. The space in his body, an existence with endless rebirth fire. It's actually like this? Lin Feng was greatly shocked, but he didn't have any time to think. Everything changed too quickly, like passing clouds and smoke, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. In front of him, extremely surging flames appeared, and the red light flickered. Lin Feng suddenly realized that he was in a strange space. Hashtag. A clear voice sounded in his ears. Lin Feng opened his eyes wide, and his face was filled with confusion. This was a language that he didn't know, but it was very familiar. That's right, it's her. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he suddenly remembered. The Phoenix beauty that he met when she was in her initial Phoenix body state had made a similar sound, but he couldn't understand it. And now, it was almost exactly the same. It should be the language of the divine beast Phoenix clan, right? Lin Feng thought to himself. His expression was solemn, but he felt helpless. After all, he was still inexperienced. Other than the language of the Tianwu continent, he only knew the language of the Douling world. While he was thinking in his heart, the clear voice suddenly stopped. Lin Feng looked around, his eyes sparkling. Those were flaming passageways, and the extreme flames were burning, filled with a scorching aura. The rebirth fire in his body had completely condensed and surged around his body, forming a dense red light. Slowly, Lin Feng exhaled. 10 flaming passageways, but 7 of them are dim. If I'm not wrong, these passageways should be equivalent to entering one of the fire caves. In other words, 7 passageways are already occupied, and I can only choose 3. Lin Feng nodded lightly, although he didn't understand what the voice was saying. But the situation was very clear, and he didn't need to make any more guesses. He only needed to do one thing. Choose 1 to 3. Let's just follow my instincts. Lin Feng looked a few more times, but he still couldn't make a choice. Since he didn't have any clues, it didn't matter. Anyway, in the Yang Fate Star Plate, there shouldn't be any danger to my life, right? Lin Feng suddenly smiled, and then stepped into one of the flaming passageways. Instantly, he disappeared. Bang! As soon as he entered the passageway, Lin Feng felt that he was surrounded by flames that reached the sky. The extreme heat enveloped his body, and every inch of his skin felt like it was on fire. Lin Feng's face was red, and the rebirth fire surged out, covering his entire body. However, under the invasion of the flames, the rebirth fire felt that it couldn't resist at all. Lin Feng gritted his teeth and shouted, "Rise!" Every inch of his body cells was mobilized. After being reborn, his body had long become an existence similar to flames. The extremely hot power suddenly burst out, and it didn't seem inferior at all. The heat didn't stop, and Lin Feng's rebirth fire continued to resist. Suddenly, the two of them strangely intertwined together, forming spirals around his body. Soon, it became a thin thread that kept spreading, like a spring silkworm forming a cocoon. What a strange cultivation method, Lin Feng thought. At first, he was a little confused, but as the rebirth fire returned to his body through the cocoon, Lin Feng immediately felt the improvement of the rebirth fire. It was very obvious. Although this cultivation method was a little strange, but it was very effective. It's improved faster than the devouring fire. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Thinking about it, the devouring fire still needed to rely on external objects to improve, and here it was the existence of the destined star plate. Even powerful sage kings entered here to cultivate. One could imagine, it's almost 10 times faster. Lin Feng nodded secretly, feeling a little surprised. The improvement of his devouring fire was already at the top with the help of Duo. But here, it was even more amazing. The destined astrolabe is indeed extraordinary. Lin Feng was amazed by the gap between them. It was really too big. The rebirth fire will be able to grow quickly. Similarly, my celestial spirit master level will also be able to improve rapidly. Lin Feng clenched his fist, feeling very satisfied. Drinking water, thinking of the source. He had to thank one person for being able to enter here. The ancient Wu Feng clan was a formidable existence at the Saint King level. 3 days later, his cultivation continued on. It didn't stop at all. Lin Feng closed his eyes and controlled the rebirth fire, calmly feeling the process of the energy transfer. Every minute, every second, his rebirth flame was brand new and rising. Although he didn't know which level it had reached, without a doubt, it was definitely higher than the devouring fire. I'm completely used to it. Lin Feng closed his eyes slightly, feeling the powerful fire elements around him. In the process of the rebirth fire's improvement, every cell in his body was active and fused. Feeling the power of the fire, he became closer and closer to the fire. The affinity of the fire. Let's take a look ahead. Looking at the endless road ahead, Lin Feng's eyes flickered. With light steps, Lin Feng quickly walked forward. Oh, Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. That familiar feeling struck him once again as a powerful flame enveloped him. The deeper he went, the stronger the flame became. At the same time, the speed of the rebirth fire's improvement increased crazily, and the cocoon gradually became thicker, filled with rich power. Not bad. Lin Feng smiled. The cultivation here was convenient, simple, and fast. Most importantly, the cultivation speed was extremely fast. Moreover, there seemed to be no end. I have to increase my strength as much as possible and break through my current strength. Lin Feng's eyes were bright, and his heart was calm. In order to enter the remaining 2 waterfall of aging and waterfall of death, he had to make the final preparations. Sprint. And I'm a little tired recently. I'll resume tomorrow. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 361. Spring left and summer came. It had been 3 months since he left the Sky Martial continent. However, in Hunter Falls, he couldn't feel the passage of time. Almost. Just one more step. The veins on Lin Feng's forehead bulged. Looking at the end of the flaming passage, he gathered all the strength in his body. The red light around his body was extremely dense. The flame of rebirth's surging aura was full of astonishing power. The thick cocoon flashed with a dazzling light. Lin Feng gritted his teeth and took the last step. Hua! The light in front of him was resplendent. The difference of one step was like a chasm between heaven and earth. Inside his body, there seemed to be an extreme sublimation. The flame of rebirth changed alone. It was full of energy and strength. That feeling was like turning from an ordinary person into a strong and powerful man. Qi surged. The destined star plate flashed with a dazzling light. Lin Feng's eyes were in a daze. He suddenly glanced at his flame world. That huge flame sphere was extremely fierce and explosive. In the phoenix's cry, endless power was poured in, changing its size. Looking at it, the area that was originally far smaller than the other spheres, now it had grown by itself, although it was still far from it. But at least there was already a change. Pa! His eyes blurred again. Almost in the blink of an eye, it disappeared in a flash. I'm out. Lin Feng looked around in surprise. The scenery was like a painting, but he had already returned to the 100 Falls. It was still spring here all year round. It was as beautiful as a fairyland. On the green grass, he was still immersed in cultivation. The energy of heaven and earth, along with the aura, surrounded his body. After 3 months of cultivation, the war god level is still a bit away from the 7th level. Lin Feng nodded lightly. His war god level was originally at the 4th level of the Star River level. In these 3 months, it had been greatly improved twice. In other words, he was now at the 6th level of the Star River level. And from the 5th level to the 6th level, 1.5 months had passed. The distance was not too far, but Lin Feng clenched his fist, his eyes shining. In terms of body, I am now comparable to a Star River level expert. His foundation was too high. Dual cultivation complemented each other and could continuously improve the basic quality of the body. Although they might not be as strong as other top-tier magical beasts in the beginning, as their strength increases, they will slowly, completely surpass. Lin Feng, on the other hand, had experienced rising from the ashes. Even now, the quality of his body was superior to that of magical beasts with top-notch bloodlines like the Celestial Hound. It was extremely rare among humans. It was like a 6-story building, but while the other war gods were building it out of wood, Lin Feng was building it out of bricks. The gap between them was huge. It's about time. I could try challenging Aging Waterfall. Lin Feng nodded lightly. The increase in his strength had increased his confidence. When he looked at the red dot again, he felt completely different. It was as if he was looking at the white dwarf waterfall. Instead of being dangerous, he became slightly fearful. This was the change brought about by the increase in strength. The flames of rebirth appeared in his palms. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with a bright light as he controlled the flames according to his will. The flames were instantly extinguished. The flames of rebirth have leveled up. Lin Feng knew very well where the change came from. In the extreme road Phoenix realm, after walking through the passage of flames, his flames of rebirth had already crossed a new chapter. Perhaps it would increase from the 39th to the 40th, or from the 49th to the 50th. Every 10 levels meant a brand new breakthrough. As for breaking through from the 29th level to the 30th level, the possibility was extremely low. After all, his flames of devouring were already at the 30th level. Familiarizing himself with his new body, slowly adapting to his new strength, Lin Feng was very cautious. After entering Aging Waterfall, there was no turning back. Either he passed the test, or he would become an old man like Old Sunday. Punishing aging wasn't something to joke about. Let's go in. Lin Feng took a deep breath as he stared at the red in front of him. His eyes were shining. Taking a step forward, Lin Feng lightly touched it. In an instant, a huge suction force came, bringing with it an irresistible force. Lin Feng's head shook violently. In just a blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. Enter 8th grade waterfall, Aging Waterfall. Search for the secret of aging and decipher it. Time limit, 100 hours. For every extra hour, you will age by 1 year. For every extra hour, you will be rewarded with an extra hour. A calm voice sounded in his ears. Lin Feng was slightly stunned. This test was completely different from the dwarf waterfall. Before he had time to think, a white light appeared in front of him. In an instant, Lin Feng's vision blurred as he was sucked into a magical water world. Blue waves rippled as the clear sound of water flowed. Compared to the previous waterfall, it seemed to be much bigger. The waterfall that fell from the sky was clear. The sound of the water flowing was gentle as it converged into a tributary. It was like a fairy scattering flowers. It was extremely strange. That feeling, it was like a peacock spreading its tail. This was the location of the second test. Aging Waterfall. The density of the water element is even higher than the dwarf waterfall. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. The proportion of the water element was more than 80%. The proportion was even more shocking. Although it was only 20% higher than the dwarf waterfall to the other 4 types of martial gods and celestial spirit masters. However, the origin energy had been reduced by half. It was weakened again. The difficulty increased instantly. It's getting harder and harder. Lin Feng smiled. To him, it didn't affect him much. With the Phoenix natal chart, his strength wasn't affected at all. The only change was that the water element monsters here were probably 20% stronger. But what's the big deal? This place doesn't feel like the Aging Waterfall at all. Lin Feng chuckled. However, there is a reward this time. It seems that the sooner this mission is completed, the better. But what's the use of rewarding me with 2 hours? Lin Feng shook his head and didn't think too much about it. To him, the most important thing now was to complete the mission within the allotted time. As for the others, it wasn't in his consideration. Find the secret of aging? Crack it. Lin Feng pursed his lips, and his eyes were deep. Where should I go to find the secret of aging? With doubts in his heart, Lin Feng looked around and saw that the water flow was slow and fast. He was deep in thought. It probably has something to do with this waterfall. There are a total of 88 branches. Is it the same as the first dwarf waterfall? Lin Feng frowned slightly. In the dwarf waterfall, all the branches gathered at the center of the waterfall. But here, the water flow is slow and fast. Obviously, the height and size of each branch are different. Lin Feng nodded secretly. This was very different from the first dwarf waterfall. Almost none of these 88 meridians were similar. There was a slight but obvious difference. It seems that it's not simple. It contains the secret of aging. What exactly is it? Holding his chin with his hand, Lin Feng once again carefully observed each branch meridian. His eyes showed that he was deep in thought. He compared them carefully, trying to find the secret. But it was like a blocked road. He had no clue at all. Difficult. Very difficult. The test of this 8th grade waterfall was far more difficult than the 9th grade waterfall. Let's go take a look. Lin Feng thought. Since he had no clue, he might as well take a look around. 100 hours. It wasn't a lot, but it wasn't a little either. At the very least, it was 8 times more than the 24 hours he had during the first dwarf waterfall. Lin Feng didn't hesitate to do it. His body dashed into one of the gentle branches and sped forward. His speed was very fast. Lin Feng opened his eyes and sensed his surroundings like a spider web. Instantly, his eyes lit up. It had improved a lot. Compared to the first time I entered the dwarf waterfall, the range of my senses has more than doubled. Lin Feng was slightly happy. Ever since he had the star sky pupil, he hadn't had such a feeling. Now, this familiar feeling had returned. The improvement of the life spirit. After the life spirit fused with the Yang Fate astrolabe. Although it had mutated, it was still inferior to the star sky pupil. But now, it had completely surpassed it. It's a very clear feeling. Lin Feng's lips curled up as he sped forward. The dots of starlight in his mind were like stars in the sky. Every dot of light contained a strange energy. Having a large detection range would be of great help to pass this test. Last time it was a dwarf. Here, I wonder what kind of existence it is. Lin Feng nodded. Not only was he not afraid, but he was also curious. In the detection, his strength was far superior to the dots of light. Whoosh! A strong wind blew. Lin Feng stopped in midair and looked ahead. It was a humanoid made of water. It was about 5 meters tall, slightly taller than the dwarf. In an instant, whoosh! A sharp water arrow shot out from the waterman's hand. It was extremely fast. Such sharp senses, Lin Feng exclaimed, but his movements were not slow at all. The flame of rebirth in his hand suddenly lit up and condensed into a fireball, exploding with a loud bang. It was launched later, but arrived first. Hwah! The fireball instantly engulfed the water arrow. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. He saw the power of the fireball appear in an instant. With lightning speed, it engulfed the waterman, an attack that destroyed everything in its path. Its reaction speed is very fast, but its other abilities are very mediocre. Even so, it is still better than the dwarf. Lin Feng nodded. In the dwarf waterfall, the dwarves had almost no other specialties other than their reaction speed. In terms of strength, I'm afraid it is equivalent to the 7th level of the Star River level, between the Water Martial God and the Sky Spirit Master. It is slightly weaker than the little Sky Dog. It was a simple attack, a probing attack. In an instant, Lin Feng figured out everything about this waterman. With his current strength, dealing with a mere 7th level of the Star River level was as easy as blowing off dust. The firelight disappeared. Lin Feng's eyes focused on the place where the waterman was engulfed. A familiar water droplet instantly appeared. As expected, Lin Feng smiled slightly. Just as he was about to move forward, suddenly, Lin Feng was stunned. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 362. That was a fragment. The shape of the fragment was sharp and uneven. Under the illumination of the water curtain, the fragment emitted a strange light. Whoosh! Lin Feng's body moved. He looked at the fragment, and his heart suddenly thumped. There seemed to be some secret hidden in the fragment. The ancient patterns looked simple, but when he looked at them carefully, he had a special feeling. There was an inexplicable sense of familiarity in his heart, but he didn't know what it was. What a strange fragment. Lin Feng looked at it curiously. There were not many things that could interest him, but this fragment, maybe it has something to do with the test? Lin Feng thought, putting the fragment into his clothes. Lin Feng looked at the crystal water droplet and accepted it without hesitation. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The water droplets looked the same, but the energy they contained was different. Compared to the dwarf waterfall, the energy density was 10 times higher. However, it was still a drop in the bucket for the amount of energy needed for the water destiny astrolabe. In the dwarf waterfall, he had swallowed hundreds of millions of water droplets, but he had only accumulated 1/10,000th of the energy. What could a water droplet do? It's better than nothing. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he continued moving forward. He had a feeling that this fragment seemed to be. The key was, there were many watermen. They were densely packed, and they were not inferior to the dwarf waterfall. In fact, they were even superior. However, under the attack of Lin Feng's fire of rebirth, none of the watermen could withstand it. Soon, within the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Lin Feng had killed thousands of watermen, but no more fragments appeared. Strange, there's nothing? The fragment just now was just a coincidence. Lin Feng frowned slightly as he thought to himself. His body moved quickly as he tried to recall what had happened. Suddenly, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The two types of water people are different. Lin Feng thought to himself. The watermen who possess the fragments can launch water arrows. As for the other watermen, they're like puppets. There seems to be less of them. Spiritual chi. Lin Feng was suddenly enlightened. Comparing the two, the difference was obvious. It's not just the water arrow. The sensing ability is also much weaker. Lin Feng nodded. It was just like the difference between the Fog Beast and the Fog Beast King in the Heavenly Treasure World. The two seemed similar, but in fact they were completely different. With that in mind, Lin Feng was stunned, and another water person appeared in front of him. Even though he was alone, he shot out a water arrow. His attack was quite strange. His speed was so fast that it was impossible to guard against it. If it was an ordinary martial artist, they would definitely be caught off guard. However, Lin Feng was different. If my conjecture is correct, there must be fragments too. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His hands instantly gathered the flame of rebirth, and a huge fireball exploded. It crazily devoured the water arrow. Lin Feng's attack was like a hot knife through butter. It blasted the waterman into pieces, leaving behind a crystal-clear water droplet and the second fragment. Lin Feng moved his body, and an illusion appeared. Feeling the strange energy that flashed from the irregular fragment, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His conjecture was indeed correct. Let's search again. Lin Feng smiled and didn't slow down for even a moment. His intuition told him that these fragments must be related to the test this time. The deeper they went, the more watermen there were. In this area with so many watermen, even a Star Sea level expert had to be careful. But Lin Feng was fearless. Heavenly Dog swallows the sun. Lin Feng's eyes were extremely bright. The horrifying suction force came again, crazily crushing everything in the surroundings. Lin Feng not only perfectly executed the attack that was 3 levels above the user's level, but he also performed extraordinarily well. The advancement of the flame of rebirth caused the fireball to become bigger and the suction force to increase. Similarly, in the space of the fireball, the digestion ability of the origin flame was also strengthened countless times. Tens of thousands of watermen were absorbed, and Lin Feng immediately felt that the water fate astrolabe was greatly improved. It was equivalent to absorbing hundreds of thousands of dwarfs in the dwarf waterfall. Even if fragments were absorbed, that was impossible because the watermen with fragments must be alone. This was the conclusion that Lin Feng came to after hunting dozens of fragments. It made sense. If the watermen with fragments hid in the dense crowd of watermen, the difficulty was probably not something an ordinary person could accomplish. This branch vein is really big. I have hunted at least 1,000,000 watermen, but it's still endless. Lin Feng was amazed. After 4 hours, he still hadn't reached the end of this branch vein, and he felt danger in his heart. If this continued, when would he reach the end of the 88 branch veins? 100 hours was obviously not enough, and he would probably be punished when the time came. Let's finish this branch vein first. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. In the worst case, he would stop hunting the watermen in groups and focus on searching for those who were alone. The other warriors definitely don't have the ability to fight in groups like me. If they want to collect fragments, they will definitely look for those who are alone. This way, it's more efficient. To him, completing the mission was the most important. The punishment of the 100 waterfalls was too severe. Kill. He swept his way. Numbers were no longer a problem for Lin Feng. With the endless flame of rebirth, no matter how many watermen there were, they were just supplements. I've reached the end? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. After killing the last group of watermen, his mind's eye sensed that there was only one lonely existence left in the area that was as dense as the stars. It landed at the bottom of the branch vein. There seemed to be some secrets hidden there. I spent a total of 8 hours. Lin Feng frowned slightly. Only 96 hours are left, and I still haven't explored 87 of the 88 branch veins. Lin Feng let out a long breath and felt a faint worry in his heart. His strength had indeed increased greatly, but this hurdle didn't seem to be only about strength. There was also wisdom, or perhaps luck? I've arrived. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Almost in an instant, 3 water arrows shot out, breaking through the wind and bringing with them a strong watery light. The last remaining waterman had a very strong sensing ability. Oh, Lin Feng wasn't surprised, but happy. Any change would be beneficial to him. The flame of rebirth ignited in his hands, and Lin Feng looked straight ahead. The 2-meter-tall waterman stood at the end of the branch vein, like a tail. Behind him was a bright light, and he couldn't see it clearly with his eyesight. Moreover, even the mind's eye senses are blocked. Strange. Lin Feng's mouth twitched, but he was very excited. It seemed that he had found a breakthrough. Rise. The flame of rebirth turned into a fireball and shot straight at the waterman. An astonishing power exploded instantly, and with an incomparable advantage, it destroyed everything. An unreasonable fighting method, but it was the most effective method. Clean and neat. Boom! The waterman dissipated in the flame. It had the strength of a small celestial dog, but in front of Lin Feng, it was just a slightly stronger ant. He had killed him effortlessly. The flame dissipated, and Lin Feng's eyes lit up, leaving behind a water droplet, a fragment, and sizzle. Sizzle. The bright light illuminated, and the sound of electric current could be heard. At the end of the branch vein, the originally sealed path appeared in front of him, as if it was an illusion covered in fog. Lin Feng looked over, and a faint smile appeared on his face. The clear water surface was boundless. From afar, it looked like a huge lake. It was very similar to the dwarf waterfall. The only difference was that the energy in the lake was more abundant. Streams of water continuously flowed down from the mountain rocks, forming a beautiful scene. A waterfall? Is this the end? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He took the fragment with his left hand and swallowed the water droplet with his right. Instantly, a clear and warm current flowed in his heart. Compared to the other water droplets, this water droplet was undoubtedly more energetic. But in front of Lin Feng, now there was only that waterfall. Only 3 branch veins? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. After stepping into this waterfall lake, Lin Feng noticed that it was different from the convergence of all the tributaries in the dwarf waterfall. Even though there were as many as 88 tributaries here, only 3 of them converged into this lake in the end. And the one he stepped into was one of them. It seems, my luck seems to be pretty good. Lin Feng smiled lightly, but he didn't dare to be careless. If he guessed correctly, the true test was waiting for him in this waterfall lake. With his mind's eye, a huge energy fluctuation appeared. Lin Feng looked over, and in front of him, there was a huge waterfall. At the place where the water flow was the most rapid, a 3-meter-tall water person was indeed waiting for him. It didn't seem to be any different from the other water people, but Lin Feng saw a faint light in its eyes. It was a creature with intelligence. Instantly, his vision became hazy. The water person's figure split rapidly, from 1 to 2, from 2 to 4, and from 4 to 8. The afterimages in front of him overlapped, and Lin Feng opened his eyes wide, only feeling shocked. Almost in the blink of an eye, 1,000 water people appeared in the center of the waterfall lake. They had the exact same appearance, the exact same existence. It was as if there were 1,000 identical twins. Instantly, they swarmed forward like a tide. Lin Feng's hands lit up with a bright rebirth flame, and a bright light shone. Bang! The boiling flame was filled with a powerful force. Go! Lin Feng's eyes focused. In an instant, the fireball was released wildly, and the astonishing power of the flame completely covered the aura of the water people. Just when Lin Feng thought that he could destroy everything, the fireball actually penetrated through the water people, and the water people instantly appeared in front of him, and a sharp shadow appeared. It went straight for his throat. Its speed was extremely fast. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 363. Space Deceleration. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Although it was unexpected, Lin Feng's reaction speed was not slow. A good habit formed from long battles. Lin Feng always maintained 100% vigilance in battle. Anything could happen. A black fog appeared. His human soul rotated quickly. Lin Feng's talent was displayed instantly. Facing this transparent, water clone, he instantly dodged. Weakened by the space deceleration and the black fog, Lin Feng quickly pulled away from the water clone. And at this moment, a total of 1,000 water clumps swarmed over in an overwhelming manner. It was vast and mighty, extremely terrifying. The clones are immune to attacks. This time, I have to find the real body? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Lin Feng fixed his eyes on the waterman in the middle of the clones, locking his aura on the waterman. It was not easy. It was like taking the enemy's head amidst thousands of soldiers and horses. But that was for other warriors. For Lin Feng, killing one was the same as killing 1,000. Was there a difference? Heavenly Dog swallows the sun. A crazy aura enveloped all the water clones, including the real body and the clones. A terrifying suction force appeared, crushing everything like a black hole. The 1,000 clones were still immune to attacks, as if they did not exist. But the real body couldn't escape the net of law. The distance between them was enough for Lin Feng to hold on for a while. Instantly, the water clone's real body disappeared. An extremely strong water-type energy surged into his body. Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up. Such abundant energy. It's no less than the water droplets of 100,000 water clones. Lin Feng was extremely surprised. From the most ordinary water clones to the water clone stationed at the end of the branch, and then to this giant water clones, the energy of the water droplets kept increasing. This clearly meant one thing. In this 100 falls, the energy of the water droplets would increase as the strength of the monsters increased. Pa! 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 The thousands of clones disappeared in the blink of an eye. The destruction of their true bodies caused them to instantly vanish like ownerless souls. It was quite easy. The talent of the Celestial Dog Clan is truly formidable, Lin Feng thought to himself. Coupled with his flame of rebirth and the space in his body, it could be said to be successful in every endeavor. Lin Feng couldn't help but think back to the time when he fought with the little celestial dog. This move, Celestial Dog Swallows the Sun, had indeed caused him a lot of trouble. The first time, he had the protection of the reverse spiral armor, but the second time, he had almost died. Who would have thought that it would become my trump card now? Lin Feng suddenly smiled. Innate skills were indeed terrifying. Even the black fog of the Black Mist Fiend Dragon race was astonishingly powerful. It could increase one's own speed and reduce the enemy's speed. It was extremely powerful in close combat. My Starry Sky Pupils is also a type of talent, but I still don't know how to use it. Lin Feng understood that given the heaven-defying nature of the Starry Sky Eyes, he definitely possessed a terrifying talent. However, it had yet to awaken, or rather, he still didn't know how to use it. That day, he had only used it to attack, but it was already astonishingly powerful. Father wants me to join Uncle. He probably wants me to return to the Lin clan. There, I should be able to find the answer. Lin Feng thought to himself. At this moment, all of the doppelgangers had disappeared. As the last doppelganger disappeared, a huge whirlpool suddenly appeared in the waterfall. An astonishing amount of water-type energy poured out, forming a huge waterspout. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he stared at the changes in front of him. The waterspout howled. Suddenly, a bright light flashed. At this moment, at the top of the waterspout, a huge wheel appeared in the air. Whoosh! It spun violently, creating a gust of wind. When the huge wheel appeared, it enveloped the entire sky. It was very shocking. Lin Feng opened his eyes wide. He felt a tremor coming from his heart. His heart thumped nonstop. The blood in his body boiled. It was as if something was being drawn out from his body. Looking at the huge wheel, Lin Feng seemed to be in a daze. At this moment, the fragments in his arms whizzed out. As if they were summoned, the hundreds of fragments suddenly seemed to have a mind of their own. Instantly, voila! An ear-piercing sound rang out. Lin Feng looked at the empty space in the middle of the huge wheel. At this moment, the fragments actually assembled themselves, as if they were pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. The ancient patterns continued to condense. The lines connected and emitted an intense light. A powerful force was surging out. So this is the use of the fragments. Lin Feng muttered softly. Why do I feel that this wheel is so familiar? It's as if it's shaking from the heart. Lin Feng frowned. The expression in his eyes kept changing. This feeling was very real. BZZ. The fragments condensed, forming an indescribable strange pattern. The clear patterns seemed to contain secrets. Lin Feng stared at the huge roulette. Scenes of nothingness floated past his eyes. It was as if he was walking quickly, but also as if he was shuttling through a passage. His whole body was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. Suddenly, his body felt tense. Is this an illusion? No, it's the fluctuations of the wheel's rotation. Lin Feng was shocked. He deeply felt the power of this huge wheel. Even if it was just a trace, it was far beyond his imagination. It was a terrifying existence. The electric current kept fluctuating. The space seemed to be pierced and split open. The fine cracks condensed into light beams. Lin Feng's eyes were hazy. Suddenly, paths seemed to appear in front of him. Lin Feng opened his eyes wide. Feeling the familiar smell, his heart almost jumped out of his chest. This feeling, Lin Feng opened his eyes wide. It's the Void Bridge. It was exactly the same as the 4 void bridges he found when he entered the Dragonai's ancient ruins. It represented the 4 types of heaven and earth: matter, energy, time, space. And the one he chose, it was time. Boom. His head shook. In an instant, Lin Feng understood. All of his doubts disappeared at this moment. The secret of aging? Lin Feng smiled. Looking at the spinning wheel, one of the paths was extremely bright. In an instant, Lin Feng flew into the sky and stepped in without hesitation. The path of time. Aging waterfall test passed. A clear voice sounded. Lin Feng smiled. The darkness in front of him gradually brightened. Sure enough, it was as he expected. A total of 8 hours. You have 92 hours in the time's secret realm. The clear voice sounded again. This time, Lin Feng couldn't keep calm. His head was buzzing, his heart was full of surprise, and his face was confused. Time's secret realm? Lin Feng was a little stunned. At this moment, the voice didn't stop for a moment. It sounded for the 3rd time. You have completed the aging waterfall test for the first time. You have more than 92 hours left. You have received a reward, the tier of space-time. As soon as the voice fell, Lin Feng looked over. A sparkling teardrop-shaped jade was floating in front of him. It was completely transparent and shone with a strange luster. Lin Feng held it in his hand. It was warm, and his heart throbbed intensely. He could completely sense the energy contained in this tier of space-time. It was of the same origin as him. The path of time. That's it. Lin Feng waited for a while, but the voice didn't sound again. Looking at the sparkling and translucent tear-like crystal in his hand, Lin Feng couldn't help but smile bitterly. He was given a reward, but there was no explanation at all. It should be a numinous treasure, right? Lin Feng murmured softly. After carefully observing the tier of space-time, Lin Feng pondered. With his knowledge, he obviously couldn't see through it. If only Duo was here. Lin Feng shook his head. With Duo's knowledge, he would definitely know its function. But now, he could only rely on himself. Chi. He cut his left hand with his right hand, and a drop of sparkling blood dripped down. The wound on his left hand healed almost instantly. After the transformation, his body had completely merged with the phoenix blood, and his recovery ability was extremely strong. Drip! The blood merged with the tier of space-time. Lin Feng's eyes were shining. He was looking forward to it. The reward from the 100 falls was obviously extraordinary. But 3 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds. Time passed slowly, but the tier of space-time didn't react at all. Lin Feng looked disappointed. He shrugged, but there was nothing else he could do. His knowledge was limited, it was indeed lacking. We'll talk about it in the Douling world. Lin Feng nodded lightly. Now wasn't the time to study this. He had to make good use of the 92 hours. This was the reward time. With a thought, Lin Feng instantly put the tier of space-time into the purple ring. He took a deep breath and forced himself to remain calm. According to the mysterious voice, he should have entered a place called the Time's Secret Realm. It was definitely a treasure land. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. He didn't have any doubts. Looking around, this place was vaguely similar to the Void Bridge. It was like a starry sky, and there was a mysterious color everywhere. Up, down, left, right, they all seemed real and illusory. It was as if he could reach out and touch them, but also as if they were far away. There was a huge characteristic here. The time energy was very rich. It was thousands of times stronger than the outside world. It was even stronger than the Void Bridge. Inside, even if he stood still, Lin Feng could feel the energy of heaven and earth constantly pouring into his body. He was absorbing it crazily. The abundant energy made him feel as if he was bathing in the starry sky. Something seemed to be flying in his mind, but also seemed to stop for a moment. The feeling was very strange. Oh, Lin Feng let out a long breath, his eyes bright. The Time's Secret Realm. Let me see how special it is. Looking ahead, Lin Feng's lips curled into a smile. He took a step forward, and instantly, it was as if he had stepped into the world. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come Achidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 364. It was a wonderful space. It was filled with the power of time and had endless mysteries. If I can cultivate here, my life spirit should improve very quickly, right? Lin Feng smiled and thought to himself. However, it was just a thought. After all, it was a waste of talent. As part of the reward of the aging waterfall, it would be a waste if he just cultivated here. Moreover, Lin Feng shook his head lightly. Of his two life spirits, his main life spirit had already fused with the sun fate Astral. His advancement as a celestial spirit master depended entirely on the fire of rebirth. As for the existence of his other life spirit, the starry sky pupil, he still did not know how to use it correctly. What's so special about the time's secret realm? Lin Feng thought to himself, looking around at the strange, starry sky. It was as if he was walking in the starry sky. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Everything here was constantly changing. It was as if time was passing slowly. Looking up, a meteor streaked across the sky with a light luster. Lin Feng's heart moved slightly, as if he had sensed something, but he couldn't tell what it was. Looking down at the ground, the crystal, glass-like, transparent existence was evolving the life of a butterfly from birth to growth, and then breaking out of the cocoon to become a butterfly. It was very fast, but it was very slow in his eyes. There was a subtle balance between the two. There was also a wave-like airflow surging, as if the sky was changing. The clouds were floating, looking very blurry. Everything was full of mysteries. The time's secret realm. What's here? Is it a treasure? Or... Lin Feng's eyes flickered. His heart was filled with hope and calmness. He wasn't in a hurry. 92 hours wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. It was enough for him to think twice before he acted. It's very wide, very big, and the deeper I go, the more condensed the power of time. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. He felt it very deeply in his heart. The surrounding scene was constantly changing. With a slight glance, there was a strange feeling in his heart. It was indescribable, as if he was walking on a path that he was familiar with. It was touching from the heart. It was like déjà vu. Let's continue. Lin Feng didn't stop. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Vaguely, he seemed to have understood something. Although he didn't know how miraculous this secret realm of time was, there was one thing that he was certain of. Here, one could comprehend. It was somewhat similar to the void passageway in the Dragonification ancient ruins. Back then, he had sensed the power of time and seen a scene in the void passageway. That memory was very vague, and the details seemed to have disappeared completely. However, Lin Feng still remembered the meteor shower that he saw. It crashed down. Pung! Lin Feng's head exploded. Looking at the starry sky above, he was completely stunned. Just like now. Boom! Boom! It exuded a scorching aura and brought about astonishing energy fluctuations. Meteorites flew past in front of him one after another. They were extremely fast, but in his eyes, they were extremely slow. Lin Feng could clearly see the fine details on the meteorite, the mist, and the ashes. The phoenix natal chart in his body shone brightly, especially the yang natal chart that had fused with his natal soul. The phoenix's eyes were filled with an extremely intense light. At this moment, it was incomparably clear. The memories that had escaped instantly appeared and surged into Lin Feng's mind. He deeply remembered everything that happened that day. The meteorites in front of him were several times larger and denser than that day. However, they were several times clearer. Their speed became extremely slow, like a turtle crawling. Every meteorite was infinitely magnified in front of his eyes and could be touched by reaching out. Lin Feng looked at them one after another. It was as if his entire body had entered the void and was immersed in it. The world became extremely slow. The second in the sky was extremely long. Everything was happening at this moment. Stopped. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the secret realm of time, the scene of Lin Feng looking up was completely still, as if he had become a statue. However, around his body, the extremely dense power of time surrounded him like a cocoon. Layer by layer, it deepened. It was thick and condensed. Lin Feng's body entered a wonderful state. At this moment, it instantly stopped. Enlightenment. Time passed slowly. As for Lin Feng, he remained in that state. Although there were many places where one could achieve enlightenment, some things seemed to be destined. The surging qi of heaven and earth enveloped Lin Feng. Being in the state of enlightenment, he naturally couldn't feel the passage of time. "It's so magical," Lin Feng said softly. There was a very comfortable feeling in his body and mind. It was as if he was bathed in this starry sky, and his body had completely merged with it. Somehow, he seemed to have sensed something. He looked at the meteorites that continued to fall, as if there was no end. A strange power was instilled in his mind, squeezing and filling. However, there was also a strange feeling. The speed gradually increased, and that feeling became stronger. Over and over again, it deepened. "What is this? What is it?" Lin Feng looked at the starry sky in front of him and muttered to himself. In his heart, a door seemed to be slowly opening. Boom, boom, boom. The meteorite rain fell faster and faster. Lin Feng's eyes also became brighter and brighter. The strange state led to the gathering of energy. In an instant, bang, there was a soft sound in his head. Instantly, Lin Feng opened his eyes wide. It was as if he was in that void. As Lin Feng entered, everything suddenly became clear. It was as if a lock with a password had been unlocked in an instant. Feeling the crazy energy around him and the surging aura, Lin Feng's heart beat faster and faster. He looked at the rapid meteorite rain. Lin Feng moved. Deceleration space. Lin Feng's eyes were as bright as stars. At this moment, the rich qi of heaven and earth was completely released. With his body as the axis, it formed a spiral shape and spread out like a vortex. The bright light circle was densely packed with energy. It was filled with powerful time energy. Its aura was extremely shocking. Whoosh! The crazy meteorite rain suddenly slowed down. The area of deceleration space was extremely large. With his body as the shape of ripples, it formed a three-dimensional circle. He was in the center of the circle. The origin. It was as if the sky collapsed, as if the earth cracked, as if a flood broke through a dam. In an instant, at this moment, Lin Feng instantly understood. Bang. He opened his eyes, which emitted a bright light. Everything had changed completely. A new scene had started. Deceleration space has evolved. Lin Feng's mouth curved slightly. Phew! He let out a long breath. At this moment, the thick time energy outside Lin Feng's body had dissipated. It was all absorbed by his body. Lin Feng gently opened his hands and clenched them. He smiled slightly. His strength had increased again. This reward is really generous. After the evolution, the deceleration space has no blind spots. I can use my body as the axis, and similarly, I can also use other parts as the axis. Lin Feng's eyes were shining. He nodded slightly. The biggest weakness of the deceleration space that day was its range of effect. Now, it had been completely improved. Not only that, the speed of deceleration had greatly increased. With the origin as the axis, it formed an area like a magnetic field. It was exactly the same as the black fog, but its application was more extensive. It was more convenient and unpredictable in battle. Each has its own strengths. Lin Feng said softly. The black fog would be affected by the enemy's strength, but that was a talent skill, just like Tengu swallowing the sun. It lasted for a long time. After all, the deceleration space was limited and needed to consume soul energy. Although it wouldn't be affected by the enemy's strength, it had a time limit and couldn't be used continuously. However, compared to the black fog, it was more flexible. More importantly, it was just an ability, but it was comparable to talent. If I use both at the same time, Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He felt a hint of excitement. When the two were combined, it would produce an effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2. Very good. Lin Feng was very satisfied. I just don't know how much time I spent in the epiphany just now. Well, don't worry about it. Continue. Lin Feng immediately stepped forward, not stopping at all. Since he had already started, he had to make the best use of his time. Such an opportunity was hard to come by. Here, I can have an epiphany anywhere. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. Walking in this starry, illusory realm, his comprehension of the time energy was raised to the peak. Along the way, he felt moved in many places, but he only glanced at them and didn't stay for long. If he observed carefully, he would probably fall into the epiphany just now and comprehend the Tao of time. Perhaps what ability would he obtain? He didn't know. Lin Feng's eyes were clear as he searched for the next target. He wanted to find an existence that was as strong as just now. The stronger it was, the deeper the feeling. I can comprehend the most in the shortest time. Lin Feng nodded vigorously. He understood. His time was limited. He didn't know how much time he had spent in the 92 hours. Fast. Lin Feng quickened his pace. His body leaped in the starry, illusory realm like a dancing butterfly. He shuttled through the flowers, searching for the flowers that he was most interested in. Soon, the time energy became stronger and more condensed. Lin Feng entered the depths. He felt suffocated in his chest. The abundant energy created a huge resistance. Bang! Lin Feng retreated quickly. His face was a little pale. As expected, this place restricts one's strength. Lin Feng's eyes were bright, but he didn't force it. It was like eating. The bigger one's stomach, the more rice one could eat. Eating too much might not be a good thing. Turning back, Lin Feng immediately looked for another path. He had to make full use of his time. Every second, countless scenes and illusions flashed past his eyes. Strange feelings surged in his heart from time to time, but Lin Feng didn't stop. Until whoosh! His eyes suddenly lit up. His chest rose and fell. The violent heartbeat made Lin Feng widen his eyes. Looking ahead, Lin Feng was stunned. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 365. A surging aura surged madly. It was an aurora, a bright white light in his eyes. A white light. This is it. Lin Feng was so shocked that his heart couldn't stop beating. The white light in front of him suddenly appeared, bringing about an astonishing arc. Behind him, blue, green, orange, and all kinds of auroras were desperately chasing. Cutting through the sky, cutting through space, shuttling into the depths of the endless starry sky, as if it was a race. It kept accelerating, a ray of aurora, together with another ray of aurora. In front of Lin Feng's eyes, it reflected into a hazy afterimage. The phoenix life plate shone brightly. The phoenix eyes flashed. Lin Feng's life spirit throbbed deeply, comprehending. This seemed to be the most natural phenomenon in the starry sky, the most essential existence, but it contained endless mysteries. Lin Feng's eyes shone, comprehending this scene, his mind completely focused on it. In the time-secret realm, everything was passing. Time passed extremely quickly. Even though Lin Feng felt that only a moment had passed, he still felt that time had passed. Perhaps not even 2 hours had passed. But in fact, the 92 hours had come to an end. So fast. What is this? Lin Feng muttered softly, looking at the lightning-like rays of light sprinkling across. Leaving a deep imprint in front of his eyes, the tremors in his heart transformed into a strange consciousness, constantly seeping into his mind. As if he felt something, but also as if he understood something. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled, the luster light shining. Lightning flashed, the rainbow-colored aurora was shockingly bright. Looking at this strange scene, Lin Feng's mind seemed to have been activated, the bright expression filled with a wisp of excitement. It was as if he could see through a layer of gauze, the existence behind the gauze. An ability that could be controlled. Almost. Just a little more. Lin Feng clenched his teeth. The feeling in his heart was getting stronger and stronger. Thump! Thump! His heartbeat sped up. Lin Feng's forehead kept oozing sweat. He felt anxious. Time was almost up. His head was a little swollen and painful. The strong urge made Lin Feng's face pale. Whoosh! Whoosh! Streams of aurora flashed before his eyes, turning into light and shadows. It was as if streams of information were being transmitted into his mind. In his mind, the door opened gently, and a ray of light shone through. Lin Feng was incomparably excited. At this moment, he had already touched the edge of existence. Is that it? Lin Feng's body trembled slightly, and the time energy outside his body became extremely dense. At this moment, the spiral-shaped airflow was like a vortex deeply enveloping Lin Feng. Everything was about to fall into place. But pong! A huge force exploded. In an instant, Lin Feng's face paled, and the feeling disappeared. That feeling was as if he had fallen from the sky back to the mortal world in an instant. His heart felt empty, as if something was missing. In his memory, those fragments disappeared, as if they had never appeared. Wah! White light flickered. When Lin Feng returned to 100 Falls, his eyes flashed with astonishment. He was back, returning from the waterfall of aging and passing the test perfectly should have been something to be happy about. But Lin Feng's face was filled with disappointment. Closing his eyes, no matter how hard he tried to recall, he couldn't remember that scene. Only the outline remained in his mind, like a painting that had lost its spirit. Just a little bit more. Phew! After letting out a long breath, Lin Feng opened his eyes. With a light TSK, Lin Feng felt that it was a pity. Perhaps if he had 2 more hours, for more hours, he would have been able to comprehend a new time ability. But there was no maybe. At least, I have touched the edge. Lin Feng nodded lightly. Since it was a foregone conclusion, there was no need to be emotional. With this time ability, sooner or later he would comprehend it. Although I didn't comprehend a new time ability, space deceleration is an evolution. Lin Feng smiled, his eyes sparkling, and his right hand flashed, and a sparkling teardrop-shaped jade appeared. It was translucent and shone with a strange luster. Lin Feng held the tear of space-time and carefully observed it. A look of fondness flashed in his eyes. This tear of space-time gave him a good feeling. Perhaps this was the biggest gain? Lin Feng smiled. There is only one final test left. Looking at the orange waterfall of the undead, Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. Danger! When he first entered 100 Falls, he felt that this waterfall of the undead was terrifying. Even now, it was still dangerous. On the other hand, his own strength had increased considerably. But it's still not enough. Lin Feng nodded slowly. In this test of life and death, he had no way out. The waterfall of the undead should be a 7th grade waterfall. According to its name, it seems to be related to the undead. Lin Feng muttered thoughtfully, I wonder if I have to face the undead, or find some secret of the undead. After pondering for a while, Lin Feng shook his head. There was no need to guess. Even if he knew, so what? The most important thing is to increase my strength. Lin Feng clenched his fist and felt the new strength in his body. In just 3 months, his strength had undergone an earth-shattering change. Leaving Tianwu continent that day was indeed a wise decision. I have to enter Do Ling world. Father is waiting for me. Ziyao is also waiting for me. And teacher and duo. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. He never forgot his responsibility. He had to pass through this hurdle. In 100 Falls, the difficulty of the test should be based on the warrior's level. My warrior level should be at the 6th or 7th level of the Star River level. Lin Feng shook his head. His position was very vague. War God was at the 6th level, but Sky Spirit Master and Martial God were at the 7th level. My Star Sky pupils have yet to awaken. War God has yet to reach the peak of the Star River level, and the flame of rebirth. There should still be a lot of room for improvement. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. He instantly made a decision. Continue to cultivate. He was not in a hurry to enter Do Ling world. Whether it was Ziyao's matter or his father's matter, it could not be completed overnight. Moreover, without strength, how could he survive in Do Ling world? Rely on his uncle Lin Jing, whom he had never met, or the Lin clan? Lin Feng smiled faintly and clenched his fists. Since young, he had relied on himself. Swoosh! His figure flashed. Entering the Yang Fate star plate, Lin Feng's lips curled. Sure enough, he was still in the extreme road Phoenix realm, but outside. Not bad. Lin Feng nodded. If he returned to an empty place, he would have to find the Phoenix realm again. After all, he only had one memory stone, and it had already been used. It wouldn't be easy for him to find something as suitable as the Polar Phoenix realm. Let's go in. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. Without hesitation, he came here to cultivate, improve his strength. In the endless void, there were stars scattered in front of him. Entering this place again, Lin Feng was no longer as surprised as he was at the beginning. Unfamiliar the first time, familiar the second time. As the bright fiery red flew and roared in the chaos, Lin Feng saw the seven-colored light again. The huge phoenix was filled with an extreme aura. Its beautiful wings were dazzling. The two solitary flames intertwined, forming a beautiful picture. The fire of devouring, the fire of rebirth. Two types of top-notch flames. It disappeared in a flash. The picture gradually zoomed out. Lin Feng immediately saw the 7 familiar light spots. He saw his flame ball, which was emitting a scorching light. It had a very familiar feeling of power. The size of the flame ball had increased by a lot, like a baby turning into a child. Although there was still a huge gap between it and the other balls, at least in the process of approaching. Lin Feng's eyes suddenly burned. Could it be that the other balls here are also warriors who have the Phoenix natal plate, like me, and have lit up the Destined Star plate? Or Phoenix? Lin Feng thought. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. It was too similar. Although they were different in size, they were the same type of existence. As he thought about it, everything in front of him changed again. It was like a passing cloud, disappearing in the blink of an eye. The surging flames flickered brightly. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He was already in a strange but familiar space. He was back. The Phoenix language that he did not understand sounded in his ears again, but Lin Feng did not care. Looking over, the flaming passageways burned with astonishing flames. Lin Feng immediately felt his fighting spirit boil. The fire of rebirth in his body had completely condensed and surged out, forming a thick red light. Suddenly, Lin Feng exclaimed softly. These passageways changed. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly as he was stunned. The aura emitted by these 10 flaming passageways far surpassed that of before. In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng came to a realization. That's right, I've already passed through the flame passageway last time. My fire of rebirth has entered a new level. So it is indeed time to change to a new cultivation environment. However, this extreme road Phoenix world is truly magical. Lin Feng sighed softly, looking at the 10 tunnels in front of him that were emitting a scorching aura. 9 of them were dim, leaving behind only one that was full of vigor. The aura of the flames was like a ferocious, hungry tiger, filled with an astonishing, killing intent. Lin Feng exhaled a long breath, but did not mind, and immediately stepped in. To him, which flaming passageway he entered, was there a difference? 6 hours later, the veins on Lin Feng's face were exposed as he clenched his teeth. After cultivating, he finally understood why no one had entered this passage. It was too painful. What a terrifying tempering method. Lin Feng's teeth chattered. The pain of the burning soul stimulated every part of his body, squeezing out the power of his fate soul to the limit, urging the cultivation of the fire of rebirth. Here, Lin Feng finally understood why his body had so much vitality. It was because of the fire of rebirth, the power of defense. The fire of rebirth was a protective existence. If the fire of devouring was an offensive flame, then the fire of rebirth was a protective flame. Persevere. Lin Feng clenched his fists. His willpower was quite strong. Pain could not only temper one's temperament, but cultivating here would also squeeze out one's potential to the limit. The cultivation of the fire of rebirth was increasing at the highest possible rate. Come. Lin Feng's eyes shone with a sharp light. He was never afraid of challenges. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.